It's Lin Feng's spirit, amazing. It's Lin Feng's spirit, amazing. When the crowd saw the 1,000 purple snakes in the air, their hearts started pounding. If a cultivator of the same level as Lin Feng was caught by his spirit, they were sure to die. Wuxia was also astonished, but he instantly regained his calm and said coldly, "Your spirit?" When facing a cultivator of a much higher level, they are of no use. When he finished talking, Wuxia's silhouette flickered and he rushed straight towards Lin Feng. Highest. What seemed like an endless amount of purple snakes launched themselves straight towards Wuxia. Wuxia hadn't even arrived in front of Lin Feng yet, but the purple snakes were already wrapped tightly around him. "Break!" shouted Wuxia furiously. The pure qi around his body transformed into a blade and started cutting the snakes as they reached him. At the same time, he joined both of his hands and a monstrously brutal pure qi emerged. Suddenly, an extremely brutal qi started to tear apart the snakes which were obstructing Wuxia's way. Wuxia's body continued to move forward through the snakes, meanwhile the purple snakes which were in a chaotic position were roaring loudly while being torn into pieces. When you have a much stronger opponent in front of you, even if your spirit is strong, it will be of no use. Thought the crowd. The spirit helped a cultivator during a battle. A monstrously strong spirit could make a cultivator quicker and stronger, but if the two opponents' cultivation levels were too different, the spirit wouldn't be of any use against the stronger opponent. If the level difference was huge, the spirit was absolutely useless. At that moment, Lin Feng and Wuxia's cultivation levels were quite different. It was extremely hard for cultivators of the Xian Qi layer to break through each layer. Besides, the difference in strength between the different Xian Qi layers was immense. Lin Feng could already kill cultivators of the second Xian Qi layer, but cultivators of the third Xian Qi layer were on a different level than the former. Concerning cultivators of the fourth Xian Qi layer, the difference was already huge in comparison with the second Xian Qi layer, they could not even be compared. Lin Feng had just broken through to the first Xian Qi layer and Wuxia was a cultivator of the fourth Xian Qi layer. Even though the Yu clan was the weakest of the three great clans, they were not easy to defeat. At least, apart from the two other great clans, no other clan could hold a candle to them. When Lin Feng saw that his spirit was getting torn apart, he suddenly closed his eyes and penetrated into a world of darkness. It seemed like everything around him was being processed in his mind, as if he was looking down on the world from above. After having penetrated into the earth fusion dimension, Lin Feng hadn't needed to enter his world of darkness. He could activate his earth fusion in the blink of an eye, and the clarity of the world surrounding him as well as his perceptions were similar to when he was in his world of darkness. But when he was in his world of darkness, there were still some small differences. There was absolutely no sound in his world of darkness. Behind Wuxia, the purple snakes gathered into a group, but at that moment, there weren't many of them remaining. Instead, one gigantic dragon appeared in their place without a single sound or sign of its presence. On its colossal and ferocious face, the eyes slowly opened. That gigantic dragon was clearly powerful. At that moment, it didn't even look like a spirit anymore, it looked like a real ferocious beast. It was terrifying. When the crowd saw that gigantic and monstrous dragon open its eyes, their hearts started to race. Those eyes were terrifying. It seemed like everything was drowning into those eyes, as if to those eyes, the lives of everybody meant nothing. The scariest thing was that it gave no presence and was completely silent. However, Wuxia didn't sense the dragon or any other signs of danger and continued rushing towards Lin Feng. But at that moment, Wuxia suddenly started shaking. Even though he hadn't realized that the dragon appeared, considering his cultivation level, his senses were extremely acute. It was as if Wuxia had sensed a pair of gigantic eyes were staring at his back. He abruptly turned around and the gigantic dragon had already arrived behind him. Roar! The gigantic purple dragon roared, which caused the atmosphere to shake. The crowd's hearts were pounding inside their chests. The gigantic dragon's mouth was open and its sharp teeth could be seen. It moved its gigantic mouth straight towards Wuxia, it was going to swallow him whole. The crowd could already see Wuxia being eaten, as if Wuxia's strength meant nothing to the dragon, as if he was already dead. Boom! Wuxia released a terrifying quantity of energy which burst out from his body. Then, an endless amount of white lights appeared behind him and spread through the air. They were sharp, brutal, and were moving straight towards the gigantic dragon. At the same time, he released an incredible quantity of pure chi which formed a hurricane that moved towards the white lights. At that moment, the crowd had the feeling that their ears were painful and an endless quantity of sharp noises were piercing their minds. Immediately after, they could no longer hear, they could only see the white lights moving towards the purple dragon. These white lights all formed the characters, sound waves. The sound seemed endless as they continued to bombard the atmosphere. Sharp sound waves were making the atmosphere vibrate. After hearing them, the atmosphere would be drowned into a deathly silence. These sound waves were filled with deadly energy and were used for destruction. Sound wave spirit. The crowd was covering their ears in an attempt to block the sounds. They could sense that their eardrums were unceasingly shaking. Blood even started to flow from the 7 facial apertures of the weaker cultivators. Their ears, eyes, nostrils and mouth were bloody. These sound waves were driving the crowd go insane. How terrifying. The gigantic purple dragon was moving closer and closer to Wuxia. At the moment when the white sound waves appeared in front of it, its gigantic mouth swallowed them whole. The purple dragon was becoming slower and slower. In the end, it stopped and its purple splendor had weakened until the gigantic purple dragon completely vanished without a trace. However, it silently disappeared, covered by the sound waves. There was no space for any other sound. An extremely sharp sword pressure suddenly appeared behind Wuxia. He abruptly turned around and saw a dazzling sword falling down from the sky. It contained a scorching hot chi. Wuxia opened his mouth and sound waves poured out from his mouth. They merged with the other sound waves and the sword slowly became less and less brilliant. Besides, Lin Feng's body projected backwards as blood flowed from his mouth. Finally, Wuxia closed his mouth and the sound waves stopped pouring out, but the atmosphere was still filled with ear-piercing sound waves. For a prolonged period of time, the crowd could still feel the pain inside their ears. It was as if they were slowly becoming deaf. They couldn't hear a single sound. The situation lasted for a while until the sound waves gradually vanished. The sound wave spirit of the Yu clan is very scary. People's hearts were pounding. For many of them, it was the first time that they had seen a Xian Qi layer cultivator from the Yu clan use a sound wave spirit. Once was enough to astonish them. That intangible spirit was terrifying. It seemed as if nothing could stop it. But Lin Feng made Wuxia release his spirit. He's also monstrously strong. Thought the crowd while looking at the fearless young man, who had blood running from the corner of his mouth. They were astonished. A moment before, his gigantic purple dragon was terrifying. If it had been them, they would have immediately been swallowed. Besides, Lin Feng had made Wuxia use his full strength. Even though Lin Feng had lost, it was still a glorious achievement. But would that monstrously strong genius die here? Wuxia was still staring at Lin Feng and his desire to kill was getting more intense. He was a cultivator of the 4th Xian Qi layer and had to use all of his strength against Lin Feng. That was a humiliation. Wuxia had the impression that he had just lost his prestigious reputation. He had just lost a great deal of face. The Yu clan hated Lin Feng and Wuxia had just been humiliated by Lin Feng. The only way to fix the situation was to kill Lin Feng. Lin Feng was also staring at Wuxia. No wonder he could attack using the power of his shouts. He had a sound wave spirit. The spirit of the Yu clan was the sound wave spirit. Even though it wasn't as strong as the sealed doors spirit of the Duan clan, it was also extremely strong. It was a terrifyingly powerful spirit. Lin Feng, remember that you will not be dying alone. I will also kill all the people you love, said Wuxia, sounding like a demon. Immediately after, he opened his mouth and once again released his sound waves. Die. After speaking, it seemed like Wuxia's sound waves had become as sharp as blades. Besides, it was almost impossible to dodge a sound attack. It immediately crashed into Lin Feng's eardrums, making him groan in pain. With Lin Feng's cultivation level, it was impossible for him to block such a powerful sound wave attack. "Brother!" shouted Duan Xianyi to Duan Wuya when she saw that Lin Feng was in danger. She looked extremely worried. "Brother!" shouted Duan Xianyi to Duan Wuya when she saw that Lin Feng was in danger. She looked extremely worried. "Nothing will happen," said Duan Wuya while staring at the silhouettes fighting in the sky. His eyes were filled with intangible confidence. Nothing could happen to Lin Feng. Zhuge Wuqing was back in Shuiyu. If Lin Feng got killed in the lovesick forest, it would mean that Duan Wuya was blind. Duan Xianyi saw that Duan Wuya was confident, but she was still extremely worried. At that moment, Wuxia had only one desire, to kill Lin Feng. Besides, if he had the opportunity, he would immediately kill him. Lin Feng couldn't defend against Wuxia's attacks, so Duan Xianyi was wondering why Duan Wuya was so confident. However, worrying was also of no use. With her low cultivation level, she couldn't block Wuxia, therefore, she had no choice but to wait and see. Lan Jiao was also fixedly staring at Duan Wuya. Duan Wuya had invited Lin Feng here. If anything happened to Lin Feng, Duan Wuya would be responsible for Lin Feng's death. But nobody shared Duan Wuya's confidence. When they saw how badly Wuxia was beating Lin Feng, the only thought they had was that time, it was really the time of Lin Feng's death. Wuxia was enraged and would not stop before he killed Lin Feng. Lin Feng already couldn't fight back anymore. After a short moment, Lin Feng would be defeated. What a pity, Lin Feng was such a monstrous genius, but because he had persistently provoked the Yu clan and Wuxia, he was going to die. The third elder of the Yu clan fighting against a teenager, in itself, was already unfair, but in that world, did fair matter? The weak were the prey of the strong. Strength was the only thing that could change one's destiny. Killing someone was sometimes only a matter of seconds. Lin Feng was strong, therefore, he had the power to kill Yu Tianxing. At that moment, Wuxia was stronger than Lin Feng, therefore, he had come to avenge Yu Tianxing. It seemed like killing Lin Feng was perfectly justified. Being stronger than Lin Feng was enough of a reason. Boom! Even more sound waves bombarded the atmosphere. They were filled with deadly energy. Wuxia had already arrived next to Lin Feng and blasted him flying with a sound wave attack. Lin Feng was shaking from head to toe. He was sent hurtling through the sky again and again. Blood was unceasingly flowing from his mouth. Lin Feng's eyes were firmly closed. In his world of darkness, he could sense everything very distinctly, but his strength wasn't sufficient to react in time to block Wuxia. "You are quite resistant," joked Wuxia. His silhouette flickered and he released a monstrously brutal pure qi. A white light enveloped Lin Feng's body and a terrifying punch bombarded the atmosphere, rushing towards Lin Feng. In front of Lin Feng, a sword started to flicker and appear, but it instantly vanished when it came into contact with the attack. Wuxia's fist was bombarding Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng's body was instantly blown away again. Blood was gushing from his mouth. But Lin Feng continued to keep his back straight and his head held high. No matter if he won or lost, no matter if he died or kept living, he would always stand tall. Boom! A monstrous deadly energy appeared in front of Lin Feng. His sword started to manifest in front of him, but his sword wasn't dazzling anymore. Instead, it was a deadly black sword. That sword was filled with shocking quantities of deadly and battle energy. That sword even seemed like it had a life of its own. In Lin Feng's world of darkness, his celestial book was floating in the air. The sword was in suspension above the celestial book. Ha! The crowd was a bit surprised. Even though Lin Feng was repeatedly being bombarded by Wuxia's attacks, he surprisingly still had the strength to condense such a strong sword. It was much stronger than everything he had used until that moment. Lin Feng looked extremely determined. Yu Qiu's eyes revealed his surprise. Lin Feng was his sworn enemy, however, Yu Qiu couldn't help but really admire such a fearless and determined young man. If he didn't die, Xueyu would have another monstrous genius. Unfortunately, he was not going to live another day. Die! The sound waves hurtled forward, the white light from the sound waves transformed into horizontal beams which moved straight towards Lin Feng. At the same time, Yu Qiu joined his hands and transformed his pure qi into a sharp blade. He then threw himself through the air, Yu Qiu's body, transformed into a bright blade which rushed towards Lin Feng. Boom! The sound waves and the black sword collided. Suddenly, a gigantic and terrifying light appeared from the collision, but Yu Qiu was also about to arrive. The blade crashed into the black sword. The sword started to crack and Yu Qiu's body was slowly moving closer. Die! Shouted Yu Qiu furiously again. Lin Feng, who was receiving those powerful blows, was shaking violently. He couldn't feel the weight of his sword anymore as if it had shattered. At the moment when Yu Qiu's blade made from pure qi was about to reach him, a purple snake crashed against Lin Feng, which sent him away from the attack. Thanks to the force provided by the purple spirit, Lin Feng was able to retreat backwards and dodge the powerful blade made from pure qi. Cough cough. Lin Feng moved back 100 meters and could no longer hold himself back from coughing vast amounts of blood. The pure qi under his feet seemed to be growing weaker as if it could crash at any moment, but Lin Feng still continued to stand tall. What incredible determination! The crowd was looking at Lin Feng in the sky. Even though he was injured, he remained proud and unflinching. After Yu Qiu's monstrous attacks, Lin Feng continued to stand straight and look his opponent in the eye. His toughness and tenacity were a source of inspiration for the others. Yu Qiu was intensely staring at Lin Feng and said, sounding cold and detached, "We will see you how you intend to stop this one." When he finished talking, Yu Qiu started releasing his pure qi again, which moved straight towards Lin Feng like an arrow. The fact that he had to use so much energy against Lin Feng was starting to annoy him. "Brother, we can't just stand here," shouted Duan Xinyi when she sensed Yu Qiu's qi while looking at Lin Feng's injuries getting worse and worse with time. She was so afraid that if Yu Qiu attacked again, Lin Feng would be killed under his blade. She knew that Duan Wuya had the strength to prevent Yu Qiu from killing Lin Feng. Duan Wuya's strength was even more terrifying than what the normal people could imagine. "Trust me, if there's a problem, I'll attack." Duan Wuya was staring at the two silhouettes in the sky. What a strong resistance. Even with all of this, there were no signs of interrupting the fight. Was Lin Feng going to become tougher after being so badly beaten and wounded? But he also had a surprise for Lin Feng. If Lin Feng had enough free time, he would ask Lin Feng to take a larger role in his faction. Lin Feng was silent, his eyes were closed and he was inside his world of darkness. His celestial book was insanely shaking, its pages looked like flowing waves. Lin Feng had the sensation that the celestial book was trying to open a new page. Lin Feng was focusing entirely on his book, nothing else could distract him from the book. The light was becoming brighter and brighter. The book was also shaking more and more intensely as if a new page was about to open. Besides, outside, Yu Qiu didn't seem willing to give Lin Feng any more chances. He was staring at Lin Feng as his powerful energy filled the atmosphere. "This time, die!" shouted Yu Qiu, sounding ice cold. He raised his hand and released a brutal qi. He then threw himself towards Lin Feng again. This time, Lin Feng was going to be killed on the spot. Yu Qiu wouldn't give Lin Feng any other opportunities. When the crowd saw Yu Qiu's monstrous attack and Lin Feng who wasn't reacting at all, they just had one thought: Lin Feng was going to die. He had time to stop Yu Qiu's attack. "Lin Feng, die!" shouted Yu Qiu furiously when he saw that Lin Feng wasn't reacting at all, but at that moment, a sharp whistling sound spread through the atmosphere. it wasn't very loud but it was extremely sharp, which surprised Wuxia, who had the feeling that he had just been pricked by a needle. Huh! Wuxia turned around and immediately saw a light which looked like a colorful ribbon and moved straight towards him. That soft and flexible thing seemed like a sharp weapon, like a deadly hidden weapon, besides it was extremely quick. What's going on? Wuxia was dumbstruck. He couldn't take care of Lin Feng at that moment, so he changed the trajectory of his hand and aimed at the light that was moving towards him. Boom! Wuxia's body was propelled backwards. The light was spinning in circles like a hurricane. Whoosh! Another sound which astonished the crowd. They looked behind Wuxia and saw that several more lights were emerging from the bamboo forest and moving towards him at the speed of lightning. Wuxia also sensed it and was astonished. He then immediately moved back in the other direction. On both of his sides, there was a ribbon, all he could do was move back. But Wuxia hadn't even moved much when two more lights appeared from nowhere and immediately moved towards Wuxia as well. Wuxia was surrounded by these lights which looked like ribbons. Immediately after, he was completely encircled and all these lights were moving towards him. It seemed like every possible movement were certain death. What's going on? Who's controlling these ribbons? They are terrifying. People's hearts were pounding violently. People who dared cause trouble in the lovesick forest were extremely rare at this moment. There were 4 colorful ribbons being controlled, which had attacked silently. Did it mean that 4 strong cultivators had appeared in the lovesick forest? Who? Shouted Wuxia furiously. Who? Shouted Wuxia furiously. The colorful ribbons surrounded from all 4 directions and pointed towards him like arrows. They were even sharper than arrows and were forcing him into a retreat. If he wanted to dodge, he could only fly up into the sky. Nobody replied to Wuxia. There were only these 4 ribbons which gave off a dazzling light which were attacking him. Wuxia moved higher into the sky in order to avoid the deadly ribbons. Gotcha! Cracking sounds emerged. These 4 ribbons surprisingly crashed into each other without hesitation, but the crowd was astonished. These ribbons cracked and transformed into even more ribbons. They weren't chaotic at all. They then immediately moved through the air towards Wuxia. The entire atmosphere was suddenly filled with ribbons. It was a particularly beautiful sight to behold. Boom! Wuxia was burning with wrath. Someone had surprisingly dared to interrupt him and attack him while he was trying to kill Lin Feng. At that moment, Wuxia couldn't see who was attacking him and he couldn't use his sound waves aimlessly without a target. Get the hell out here! Shouted Wuxia extremely aggressively. His pure chi turned into a sharp weapon which moved straight towards these lights surrounding him. Sound waves were unceasingly spreading through the atmosphere, but the colorful ribbons were becoming more and more beautiful. 10 ribbons transformed into 100 and filled the entire sky with light. They were all incredibly colorful like flowers in blossom whose petals were enveloping Wuxia's body. What a monstrous control ability! Thought people in the crowd whose hearts were twitching. They couldn't see who was attacking Wuxia, but that enemy was extremely powerful. Wuxia couldn't even fight back against so many colorful ribbons. Under Wuxia's feet, there was an elegant pure chi which propelled him into the air at an incredible speed, almost in the blink of an eye. However, even though Wuxia was extremely quick, it seemed like these colorful lights were even quicker than him. In a flash, he was quickly surrounded by ribbons. The crowd on the ground was astonished. They couldn't see Wuxia any longer. The ribbons caught up with him and entirely wrapped around his body. The crowd couldn't see what was happening inside the colorful ribbons. Wuxia's face turned deathly pale when he saw all the colors surround his body. He knew that he had no chance to run away. His transformed pure chi into a sharp weapon which immediately moved towards the ribbons. He hoped to cut through them and open the way. Sirrr. Wuxia's pure chi did cut some of the ribbons, but immediately after, the ribbons merged together and completely enveloped Wuxia's body. A colorful sphere of ribbons was seen floating in the air. Yu Qiu's body was inside that sphere. At the same time, that sphere was descending, precisely where the ribbon surrounded Yu Qiu. The crowd was staring at that colorful sphere and saw unceasing flashing lights. Besides, someone was still moving inside. It was obviously Yu Qiu struggling inside the sphere. Who is behind that powerful attack? The crowd was stupefied. In a flash, that person had managed to force Yu Qiu into becoming a prisoner of that sphere. What a terrifying power. At that moment, at the location where each ribbon emerged, silhouettes appeared. The silhouettes moved towards the sphere, which made the crowd frown. There were 4 colorful ribbons, each with a different person holding a different ribbon. Their faces were all covered with fine gauzes and their hair was fluttering through the air. Surprisingly, they were all women. They were all pulling on the long colorful ribbons to approach the sphere. The way they were moving through the air made them look like celestial beings. Many people thought that it looked very dreamlike. While the crowd was absent-minded as if in a dream, the 4 silhouettes had already arrived at the sphere. They then put their beautiful slender and white hands onto the surface. Instantly, a horrible shriek pierced through the atmosphere. Yu Qiu was obviously the source of that shriek. Yu Qiu was the prisoner of that sphere and had to endure 4 extremely powerful attacks at the same time. Nobody knew who the 4 women were, but Yu Qiu had offended them and they had attacked him without the slightest degree of mercy. Besides, the other people who were present in the lovesick forest looked puzzled. They were wondering whether these women were sent by the owner of the forest. Maybe they were attacking Yu Qiu because of his furious shouts using sound waves had broken the calm and tranquility of the forest. However, the crowd had never come across the owner of the lovesick forest. The rumors said that they were always present. However, they were staying in a forbidden location within the forest. It was said that nobody could enter that forbidden place and the owner also never came out. Yu Tianchen pulled a long face. How could this be? He was a member of the Yu clan. He, of course, knew who the owner of the lovesick forest was. How could they ruin such a great moment for Yu Tianchen? He had always really wanted to see Lin Feng die. Lin Feng was only a half step away from being killed, but these 4 women appeared out of nowhere and had immediately attacked Yu Qiu. Yu Tianchen was wondering if they had done that protect Lin Feng. What was really happening? Only Duan Wuye knew what was happening. He also understood what all of this meant. She had finally come out and was finally attacking. Everything was happening just as he had anticipated and planned. Lin Feng had killed Yu Tianxing as well as the 2 strong cultivators of the Xian Qi layer who belonged to the Yu clan. Then Yu Qiu wanted to kill Lin Feng. Lin Feng had become the sworn enemy of the Yu clan, so they would not stop until they took his life. It seemed like Lin Feng was definitely going to die, but Duan Wuye was perfectly aware of the fact that while she was here, who would dare try to kill Lin Feng? 18 years before, she was just like the prodigious cultivator of the Duan clan. She was also one of the most dazzling geniuses of Shuiyu. At that moment, the genius of the Duan clan was already hidden in the depths of the imperial palace controlling everything. However, nobody knew where she was. She had become a legend. Unfortunately, her husband had been sealed by the Duan clan, otherwise, the Yu clan would have been powerless to resist them. In the atmosphere, a monstrous qi was emerging. The colorful sphere broke apart and the colorful ribbons broke into small pieces. Yu Qiu once again appeared in the crowd's field of vision again. However, at that moment, Yu Qiu seemed different from a moment before. A moment before, Yu Qiu was extremely aggressive and wanted to kill Lin Feng. But at that moment, Yu Qiu's body was covered with wounds and his qi was weak. Besides, the light in his eyes had become pallid, which made him look simple-minded. He blankly gazed into the distance, yet he still looked like he wasn't resigned to giving up. He was a fool because he still didn't know why he had provoked the anger of these women. He had to endure 4 attacks at the same time. He didn't resign to give up because he was the prestigious 3rd elder of the Yu clan and was a strong cultivator at the 4th Xian Qi layer. However, his cultivation was crippled by these 4 powerful women of the Xian Qi layer. He didn't even know the reason as to why his cultivation had been crippled. At that moment, Wuxia just had the feeling that his world had collapsed around him. He seemed like he had abandoned his mind to despair. Wuxia's hands and legs were still tied by the colorful ribbons. At that moment, the four lithe and graceful silhouettes shook their hands, and in a flash, Wuxia's body was thrown into the horizon. At the same time, the four women said something. From now on, all members of the Yu clan are banned from entering the lovesick forest. If they attempt even half a step into the forest, they will be killed for their offense. While talking, the four silhouettes flickered at the same time, disappeared into the bamboo forest. In a flash, they were gone. In the air, the broken colorful ribbons were still fluttering powerlessly through the wind as if these four silhouettes were simply imagined. From that day on, the Yu clan was banned from entering the lovesick forest. Obviously, these words had proved who these four women were. They represented the owner of the lovesick forest and were in charge of informing the Yu clan that they were banned from coming back to the forest. Not only had Wuxia's cultivation been crippled, but the entire Yu clan was banned from entering the lovesick forest ever again. If they violated that rule, they would be killed. Boom! Wuxia's body violently crashed onto the ground and blood burst into the air. His entire body was a wreck. Wuxia was blankly staring towards the disappearing silhouettes and screamed with both grief and fury, "Why? Why?" Nobody would answer his question. The crowd didn't understand what just happened either. They didn't understand why Wuxia was so violently attacked and why the Yu clan had been banned from entering. Could it be that because Wuxia violated the calm and tranquility of the forest? But Lin Feng had killed Yu Tianxing and nobody did anything. However, Lin Feng was still indifferently standing in the air. His eyes were closed as if nothing had happened. Many people were startled at this scene. Did it have anything to do with Lin Feng? No, it's impossible, it can't have anything to do with Lin Feng. People in the crowd quickly refuted their idea that it could have anything to do with Lin Feng. The owner of the lovesick forest was an extraordinary person while Lin Feng just a marquis of Yangzhou City. It wouldn't be anything to do with him. No, it's impossible, it can't have anything to do with Lin Feng. People in the crowd quickly refuted their idea that it could have anything to do with Lin Feng. The owner of the lovesick forest was an extraordinary person while Lin Feng just a marquis of Yangzhou City. It wouldn't be anything to do with him. Perhaps that the owner of the lovesick forest decided to attack Wuxia because she couldn't bear seeing how arrogant and aggressive he was, after all. Everybody had compassion when seeing the weak being bullied, so maybe the owner had compassion for Lin Feng. That would be perfectly normal. Many people looked to Wuxia in the distance. He looked dispirited and his hair was extremely messy. They all felt compassion and pity for him, the prestigious third elder of the Yu clan, who was a cultivator of the fourth Xianqi layer, had ended up in such a tragic situation. From that moment on, he was a worthless existence. Not only had he lost his prestige in the Yu clan, but he wouldn't even be able to keep his social status with such a low strength. Besides, Yu Tianxing was dead. The Yu clan would definitely blame Wuxia for that. This was the end. Wuxia was done, there was no hope left for him anymore. That was life. No matter how strong someone was, there was always someone stronger. Therefore, in the world of cultivation, people had to unceasingly become stronger in order to control their own destiny rather than leaving their lives in the hands of others. Those who had the most strength could control the people, like gods. Wuxia was aware that he had no future left. He was looking at Lin Feng, who was stood in the sky. His heart was feeling extremely painful. Why? He hadn't been able to kill Lin Feng, yet he made the owner of the lovesick forest furious and they crippled his cultivation. He hated Lin Feng from the bottom of his heart, but his heart was also filled with regret. If he hadn't gone to the lovesick forest to kill Lin Feng, none of this would have happened. He also hated the person who had informed him that Yu Tianxing was in danger. Wuxia even had doubts about the information. He wondered if it was a trap or not. At the moment he arrived, he was just in time to see Lin Feng, who was clearly moving to kill Yu Tianxing. There were also other prestigious people present as witnesses. Yu Qiu felt that he had fallen into a whirlpool of conspiracies and his judgment day had come. Until that moment, Yu Qiu still didn't even know the person who delivered the information to him. His eyes were sparkling, he glanced around at the crowd and finally focused on someone in particular, Duan Wuya, the second prince. It seemed like Duan Xinyi and Duan Wuya were Lin Feng's good friends. Why had Lin Feng come to the lovesick forest? Yu Qiu suspected Duan Wuya to be the origin of everything that happened. Yu Qiu was suddenly struck with a feeling of foreboding. Duan Wuya's moved and he looked at Yu Qiu in the distance with disdain. He then said while smiling indifferently, "You have already been expelled by the owner of the lovesick forest, Uncle Yu, how come you haven't left yet?" When Yu Qiu saw Duan Wuya's smile, he was astonished. It was him, it was definitely him. Yu Qiu's mouth twitched, his eyes looked like two endless wells of hatred. When Duan Wuya saw Yu Qiu's eyes filled with hatred, but he just continued to smile and said, "Uncle Yu, some people should give face to other people when the time comes. If they do, things can carry on as always. If they don't and instead they cater their pride and arrogance, things can get messy." When Yu Qiu heard Duan Wuya's words, he was certain. It was Duan Wuya, the person who gave the information and lured him here was Duan Wuya. Duan Wuya really seemed to be the one at the origin of these events. It seemed like Duan Wuya was insinuating that Yu Qiu had made him lose face, therefore, he had to pay the price. However, how could Duan Wuya anticipate that the owner of the lovesick would attack Yu Qiu? The owner would never listen to Duan Wuya's orders. "You're so treacherous," said Yu Qiu with an evil tone which surprised Duan Wuya. Duan Wuya then said indifferently, "Third Yu elder, I've always given you face and treated you with the utmost respect and you dare to humiliate me, what is this supposed to mean? You're so shameless Duan Wuya. How majestic and prestigious is it to be born as the second prince? I wouldn't have thought that you would betray me like a shameless traitor. You're just a tiny insignificant person." Yu Qiu was spitting venomous words while fixedly staring at Duan Wuya. However, at that moment, a whistling sound spread through the air, stupefying everybody. It was at that instant everyone noticed a spear pierce through Yu Qiu's throat and his eyes filled with agony. That spear had just taken Yu Qiu's life. When the crowd saw that, they were all astonished. Yu Qiu had died, killed on the spot in front of everybody. "If anyone dares to insult His Majesty, they will die," said a silhouette dressed in black that suddenly appeared. Immediately after, the silhouette respectfully knelt in front of Duan Wuya and said, "Yu Qiu continuously insulted Your Highness. I took the initiative without asking for permission, please punish me for this offense." "How audacious!" shouted Duan Wuya furiously. He then said coldly, "Even if Yu Qiu behaved in an impetuous way, why did you need to kill him? Explain yourself." "I decided to act without asking permission from Your Highness, so I will bear the full responsibility for my actions. I will bring the body back to the Yu clan and let them deal with me," said the person sounding calm and serene. They didn't look bothered, it was as if they were speaking of casual matters. Duan Wuya looked irresolute for an instant and then said, "That's the only choice, take the body to the Yu clan and let them dispose of you as they wish, whatever they decide, you cannot disobey." "Yes, Your Highness," replied the person while nodding. They put the spear over their shoulder with Yu Qiu still hanging loosely on end the spear and they carried the body away like that. The crowd's hearts started to pound violently when they saw the body being treated as garbage. Was he really going to apologize for his offense? Besides, was the person who had Yu Qiu attacked, Duan Wuya? The crowd started looking at Duan Wuya and coldness invaded their hearts. Duan Wuya, who was so friendly, was showing a new side of his personality. Maybe Duan Wuya's goal had really been to allow the prestigious crowd to witness all these events. It was a message to let them understand that they needed to remain obedient and docile, otherwise they would suffer the same fate as Yu Qiu. Duan Wuya turned around as if nothing had ever happened. He then turned to Lin Feng and looked at him in a strange way. At that moment, Lin Feng was calmly standing in mid-air. His qi was stable as it floated through the air, it showed absolutely no indication that he was badly injured. Besides, even for a person in perfect health, releasing such a stable qi was also very difficult to achieve. It seemed like Lin Feng was in a trance, he was surprisingly having a breakthrough. The crowd also looked at Lin Feng with strange looks. Lin Feng looked like he was completely disconnected from the world, he didn't even know that Yu Qiu had just been killed or seen the four women appear and save him while crippling Yu Qiu's cultivation. Lin Feng had become lost in his own world. The world of darkness belonged to Lin Feng. The celestial book was floating in the air, a multitude of colors were flashing around it, it looked resplendent. At that moment, Lin Feng was entirely focusing on his celestial book. Besides, the third page of the celestial book was unceasingly shaking and it looked like it was forcing the second page to turn to reveal the third page. That time, the light wasn't dazzling, there wasn't the majesty of a dazzling sword, there was just an immense power which gave the sensation of death. When the third page was starting to turn, something could be seen on the page. It was a black flame and it looked incredible, as if it belonged to an evil spirit. On the second page of the celestial book, a black sword appeared and was filled with deadly energy and battle energy. On the third page, there was a black flame. Besides, that flame wasn't extremely agitated, on the contrary, it was calm and tranquil. It wasn't releasing even a tiny amount of qi, but that sort of deathly calm would bring on feeling of terror. That sort of flame seemed like it came directly from the underworld. It was terrifying. Grim fire, thought Lin Feng. The sword was the sword of a war god, while that fire was so monstrous that grim fire is the first words Lin Feng had come up with to describe the phenomenon. It came from the underworld, it was the grim fire. It seems like my celestial spirit always relies on external stimulus to reveal a new page. Besides, each page seems to introduce a unique and special treasure, which grants me with an extraordinary ability. Thought Lin Feng. At the beginning, his celestial spirit granted him with omniscient perception and the monstrous power of understanding. The second page had granted him with a sword which enabled him to understand the way of the sword with an extremely high mastery. Each time he practiced, his sword knowledge was turning into a deeper understanding. Besides that time, the third page had opened itself and was showing him the grim fire. Lin Feng was wondering how strong that fire was. At that moment, the crowd was, as before, staring at Lin Feng and finally, they saw him move. He then immediately opened his eyes and black flames filled his eyes. When the crowd saw, they felt chills down their spines, as if a qi of death had surrounded them. How cold! They had the impression that their hearts were going to stop at that moment. The black flame stayed in Lin Feng's eyes for a few seconds and then vanished. Lin Feng's facial expression returned back to normal, he then glanced at the crowd stupefied. The black flame stayed in Lin Feng's eyes for a few seconds and then vanished. Lin Feng's facial expression returned back to normal, he then glanced at the crowd stupefied. At that moment, everybody was looking at him and Yu Qiu had disappeared. What happened? Asked Lin Feng while narrowing his eyes a little bit. He had distinctly seen 4 colorful ribbons in the distance and immediately after he was absorbed into the world with the celestial book, after that, he had no idea what had happened. Cough. Lin Feng coughed up some blood. The pure qi under his feet was getting weaker and weaker to the extent that it was collapsing under his weight. Lin Feng then descended from the sky and landed next to Lan Jiao. He quickly asked, "Where is Yu Qiu?" "He's dead," replied Lan Jiao surprised. That guy surprisingly didn't know anything about the moment after Yu Qiu was about to kill him, and he was just focusing on his breakthrough, he was unreal. A moment ago, 4 women appeared and crippled Yu Qiu's cultivation and announced that the Yu clan was banned from coming to the lovesick forest from now on. Then one of the princess guards killed Yu Qiu, said Lan Jiao while glancing at Duan Wuya. Lin Feng looked perplexed. Yu Qiu wanted to kill him and in the end, he had ended up dead himself. Lin Feng couldn't believe it. He knew that if Duan Wuya invited him here, nothing bad would happen, but he would have never thought that Yu Qiu was going to die as a result. Lan Jiao had just mentioned 4 women who banned the Yu clan from coming back to the lovesick forest, which meant that they represented the owner. They couldn't be Duan Wuya's people, so why did they save him and cripple Yu Qiu's cultivation? Could Duan Wuya have done something? Lin Feng, you're amazing, said Duan Wuya while smiling to Lin Feng. Lin Feng had surprisingly fallen into a cultivation trance when Yu Qiu was about to kill him. He was an exceptional talent. No wonder that he had such terrifying abilities. Lin Feng looked at Duan Wuya and looked confused. There were too many things that he didn't understand about what had happened. Why did Duan Wuya invite him? Had he voluntarily invited Lin Feng and Yu Tianxing at the same time hoping that Lin Feng would kill him? But, if he had, what was his purpose? Besides, how come Yu Qiu appeared at the precise moment when Yu Tianxing was in danger, when Lin Feng wanted to kill him? Finally, who were those 4 women? Why had they saved him and crippled Yu Qiu's cultivation? Lin Feng couldn't clearly see the bigger picture. He was missing something and couldn't understand why everything happened as it did. Lin Feng, this is for you. At that moment, Duan Xinyi was handing a bottle of pills to Lin Feng which stupefied him. He then asked, "What's this?" "It's to heal your wounds," replied Duan Xinyi while smiling, after which Duan Wuya narrowed his eyes. Lin Feng understood how extraordinary these pills were when he noticed Duan Wuya's peculiar facial expression. "Princess, my wounds are not severe at all. I just need some rest and I'll be in top condition again," said Lin Feng while refusing the pills. "You called me princess again." Duan Xinyi looked disappointed and tried to hide her bitterness, which made Lin Feng smile wryly. "I'm sorry, Xinyi. "Alright, take these, only then will I forgive you," said Duan Xinyi while handing the bottle over to Lin Feng. Lin Feng had no alternative. He smiled wryly and accepted the bottle. Immediately after, he opened it. Inside, there were 9 yellow pills. There was qi being released from the pills and it gave off a pleasant fragrance. Lin Feng took out a pill and swallowed it. After taking it, a pleasant and refreshing qi spread through his blood vessels, repairing his internal organs and restoring his lost blood. Lin Feng could even sense each and every single cell healing, as if every part of his body was healing at miraculous speed. What a powerful pill, thought Lin Feng. These pills were extremely precious. "Xinyi, 1 pill is enough to heal my wounds, you can keep the rest," said Lin Feng while closing the bottle again. Then he handed it back to Duan Xinyi. Duan Xinyi glanced at Lin Feng and grabbed the bottle. Those pills were precious. They were Xian-level pills of medium quality. 1 was enough to cure all of Lin Feng's wounds. Yu Tianchen, who was next to them, looked at Lin Feng with an ice-cold glare. He could see how friendly Duan Xinyi was to Lin Feng. Yu Tianchen's entire body was filled with killing intent. He deeply despised Lin Feng and wanted him dead. He even hated Yu Qiu for not killing Lin Feng a moment before. If only the 4 women hadn't appeared, Lin Feng would be dead. Lin Feng's senses were extremely acute. He immediately sensed Yu Tianchen's glare. He turned around and coldly looked at Yu Tianchen. In an instant, Yu Tianchen lost his composure and started shaking while lowering his head. He didn't dare to look at Lin Feng in the eyes. Lin Feng did not hesitate to kill Yu Tianxing. If Yu Tianchen provoked him, the same thing would happen to him. Yu Tianchen hadn't become crazy. "Worthless scum," said Lin Feng, which made Yu Tianchen's heart leap. His face even turned red. In the past, that worthless scum was extremely arrogant because he was a member of the Yu clan. so he looked down on Lin Feng as if he was an insect to be crushed. However, Lin Feng was now humiliating him and calling him scum in front of everybody. Yu Tianqin didn't even dare to contradict Lin Feng. Lin Feng only had to glance at him and he would freeze in terror. He didn't even dare to look in the direction of Lin Feng any longer. Right now, standing before Lin Feng, he didn't even dare to raise his head. This was the sad reality. Xin, Your Highness, I have other matters to attend, so I will take my leave, said Lin Feng while turning to Duan Xin and Duan Wuya. Duan Xin started to open her mouth. She wanted to say something but didn't know what excuse she could use to make him stay. Duan Wuya slightly smiled and nodded, all right, no problem, you can leave. I hope that we will have the occasion to drink some more next time. All right, said Lin Feng while slightly nodding. Then, he immediately turned around and moved towards the exit of the lovesick forest. Lan Jiao was also closely following behind him. Contrary to what people might think, you are a very merciful person. Lan Jiao arrived next to Lin Feng and glanced at Lin Feng with a strange expression. Was I merciful to you? Said Lin Feng, which made Lan Jiao surprised. Was he merciful to her? At the Dongling Hill, the fire was finally extinguished and everything was burnt black, not even a single blade of grass could grow there anymore. It was completely desolate and no one would venture there anymore. Nobody wanted to visit a place that looked like it was devastated by battle. However, at that moment, a clean and handsome young man arrived at the top of the hill. He then sat under the scorching sun as sunlight started moving towards his body and turning into brilliant flames that radiated from his body. The flames were hypnotizing. The young man at the top of the hill was obviously Lin Feng. The sunshine at the top of the hill was perfect to practice his cosmos-burning sun skill. Lin Feng closed his eyes and started to cultivate his cosmos-burning sun skill. The sunlight was shining onto his body and unceasingly penetrating his flesh. A short moment later, it seemed like Lin Feng was the center of a majestic fire. However, at that moment, Lin Feng entered into his world of darkness. He had many ideas. In the middle of his world of darkness, his celestial book was also floating in the air. The black flame inside the book was undulating. Lin Feng focused his entire attention on the black fire and calmly studied it. Each and every single thought he had was about the grim fire. A deadly qi emerged from Lin Feng's body. It looked dark, evil and ice-cold, as if it had come from the depths of hell. At the same time, a black flame appeared on Lin Feng's body. The fire which was initially burning on his body surprisingly turned into a black fire, a grim and deadly black fire. The scariest part was that black flames were unceasingly appearing. Lin Feng's body was almost entirely covered with black flames. After a while, the radiant flames had entirely transformed into black flames. At that moment, in the middle of those rampaging black flames, Lin Feng looked like a demonic deity. He looked absolutely terrifying. This is a new dimension. As expected, the flames from the sun and my grim fire can merge to create something new, thought Lin Feng, who was still a bit surprised. He could already make pure qi into flames, and with the knowledge he had acquired from using grim fire, he was now able to transform qi into grim fire. However, the black flames which were burning around Lin Feng's body didn't look as overwhelming as it did in the book. It didn't seem as impressive as the image. Lin Feng's thoughts were extremely quick. The black flames around his body condensed into several tiny flames shaped as petals which then hovered in front of him. An endless quantity of flames started to emerge from his body, which was then turned into more tiny black flames, which gathered in front of Lin Feng. A black lotus which was the size of a hand, hovered in front of Lin Feng. That black lotus was a grim black lotus. It contained grim fire. All the pure qi which was surrounding Lin Feng's body turned into black flames which merged with the lotus flower. Lin Feng opened his eyes and saw the black lotus. His eyes were twinkling. Lin Feng opened his eyes and saw the black lotus. His eyes were twinkling. What a monstrous qi! Whispered Lin Feng to himself. The black fire lotus was made completely from condensed pure qi which took shape from Lin Feng's imagination. He imagined a lotus flower that could engulf the world. The black lotus made from grim fire could surround and annihilate anything, it would burn anything it came in contact with. In Lin Feng's thoughts, the lotus flower was slowly growing bigger and bigger, but the energy contained in the fire was becoming less dense and concentrated. The denser the energy contained within the lotus, the more terrifying it was. Lin Feng concentrated again and the energy of the lotus flower slowly regained its original shape and power. Lin Feng attempted to increase the size a few times with no success. Lin Feng stopped trying to increase the size and power of his lotus flower with his energy. He then stretched out his hand. In an instant a scorching hot fire appeared. In the middle of that fire, there was a monstrous rampaging energy. It seemed like the fire of a ferocious beast, that was precisely the essence fire that Lin Feng had stolen from Bing Yuan at Celestial River. Ever since he left Celestial River, he didn't have any opportunities to use it. Now, he had condensed his grim fire into a black lotus, so it was worth giving it a try. The beast essence fire was rampaging in the atmosphere. Lin Feng controlled his black lotus and moved it towards the beast essence fire. The black lotus then slowly started to blossom and at the same time, it gradually enveloped the beast essence fire. "Absorb," said Lin Feng in a low voice with a sharp expression in his eyes. In a flash, the black lotus petals slammed shut and completely absorbed the beast essence fire within. The black light started flickering and increased amounts of deadly energy started pouring out from the lotus. It was growing more and more monstrous as it grew more powerful. Lin Feng didn't find the situation strange at all. It was the beast essence fire of a seven-tailed fox. It was initially monstrously powerful. When the black lotus absorbed the beast essence fire, no monstrous fire qi emerged, there was just a terrifying deadly qi. It was entirely absorbed without wasting a single drop of its power. That black lotus was monstrous. It seemed like it was the god of all fires and was able to swallow all the fire in the world. After a while, the black lotus was still getting stronger and stronger. Lin Feng was smiling as he watched this. He raised his head and looked at the sun in the sky and shouted, "Transform." After Lin Feng's shout, the black lotus transformed into a myriad of small black flames which were then absorbed into Lin Feng's body. The radiant sun flames appeared around Lin Feng's body. Once the grim fire was absorbed, Lin Feng's sun qi had grown even more powerful. The fire within his body was even more scorching and dazzling. The grim fire could merge with the sun qi, and after absorbing the grim fire back into his body after it increased in power, the power of his sun qi also increased. The sunlight was still shining down on the top of the hill. Lin Feng was sitting there smiling. He was extremely happy with his progress. He nearly died, which caused his celestial book to open itself and the grim fire was revealed. Besides, his grim fire and the flames from his cosmos-burning sun skill could fuse together, which enabled him to greatly increase the quality of his skill along with its power. Lin Feng was lacking when it came to fire. No matter whether it was to concoct pills or fabricate weapons, Lin Feng needed to control an extremely powerful fire to increase his ability. What kind of spirit is my celestial spirit? Why do I have such a spirit, thought Lin Feng. He couldn't understand. During that cold and rainy night, his spirit had caused him unbearable pain when it awoke, but the reward was gigantic. Each page of the celestial book seemed to grant him with monstrous abilities: Warlord Sword, the Grim Fire. What would appear on the next page? Lin Feng didn't think too much. The path of cultivation was an extremely long and complicated one. If he achieved a certain condition, success would be achieved. Lin Feng obviously knew that thinking on it would get him nowhere. The burning flames were absorbed into Lin Feng's body and he stopped cultivating. His silhouette flickered and he disappeared from Dongling Hill in an instant. The news about what happened in the lovesick forest hadn't spread at all, as if someone was preventing it from circulating. Even a certain somebody from the Yu clan who had witnessed the events was staying quiet. Who would dare carelessly talk about what had happened between Duan Wuya the second prince and the Yu clan? The outside world was extremely peaceful, it seemed like just another normal day, but in the lovesick forest, there were surprisingly many wealthy and noble young cultivators. As before, how could the elites of Shuiyu not know about the events that happened there? They all understood that the Yu clan was going to go through some hardships. Yu Tianxing was killed by Lin Feng as well as 2 cultivators of the Xian Qi layer who belonged to the Yu clan. Then, Yu Qiu's cultivation was crippled and immediately after, one of Duan Wuya's guards killed him. How could all the witnesses remain calm after seeing these events happen in the lovesick forest? But the members of the Celestial Academy didn't know about it. The disciples of the Celestial Academy were mainly concerned with Qiong Bai Luo. Qiong Bai Luo had easily defeated Du Bai, his blue void spirit was terrifyingly powerful and the majority of the students of the Celestial Academy all considered Qiong Bai Luo as the most dazzling genius of the academy. He was the top-ranked disciple of the academy. However, very few people thought that Lin Feng was the strongest student of the Celestial Academy. They had always thought that if Lin Feng fought against Qiong Bai Luo, he might have a chance, but that was just speculation. At that moment, on a big public square at the Celestial Academy, many people were surrounding the central cultivation tower and the atmosphere was bustling and lively. The crowd raised their heads and looked at the top of the cultivation tower with envy. The top of the cultivation tower was the dream of many. Those who practiced at the top of the tower were always worshipped. Everybody hoped to be able to practice at the top someday. At that moment, in the distance, some whistling sounds emerged, they had been caused by a strong wind which painfully piercing through people's eardrums. The crowd couldn't help but raise their heads and gaze into the distance. Immediately after, they saw something flying through the atmosphere. The air was being split in 2 and in the middle was a magnificent white light. Huh! The crowd was stupefied and blankly staring at the sky. Immediately after, a gigantic silhouette appeared in front of them. A huge wind followed every movement from the silhouette, the wind rushed through the air just like a hurricane, the scene was incredible. A ferocious beast, a legendary rock. The crowd was staring at the huge winged beast. It was a legendary rock. In the sky above the Celestial Academy, a ferocious beast suddenly appeared, thus, people were a bit surprised. It can't be, that's a human being. The crowd was gasping with astonishment and their hearts started pounding. That gigantic silhouette was moving nearer and nearer. The crowd could see it more clearly at that moment. That gigantic silhouette wasn't a ferocious beast, surprisingly, it wasn't a legendary rock, instead, it was a human being. Actually, that gigantic silhouette and the wings were from a spirit, a legendary rock spirit. High Official Chu Zhanpeng. In a flash, the crowd thought of someone, it was a legendary rock spirit so it had to be Chu Zhanpeng the High Official. Of course, nobody knew in the air, behind that legendary rock was an ice-cold qi. At that moment, the sun was shining down upon people's bodies but suddenly, the sky became dark and covered with clouds. The High Official Luo Shui. The crowd was astonished once more. They were absolutely right, there were 2 people in the sky, High Official Chu Zhanpeng and High Official Luo Shui. 2 high officials were surprisingly moving towards them at full speed. It seemed like there were many silhouettes that were flickering and coming towards the Celestial Academy in the distance. Besides, these people were all wearing the uniform of the Holy Courtyard, without exception. What's going on? The crowd was growing more and more anxious. These people were students of the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu, their facial expressions were all extremely sharp and they were releasing an extremely powerful qi. They were all extraordinarily strong, there wasn't a single weakling amongst them. Those people were all charging towards the Celestial Academy at the same time, there was even the 2 strongest disciples of the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu there, they were both high officials. It seems like something incredible is about to happen. Thought the crowd. At that moment, Chu Zhanpeng had already arrived above them in the sky. The wings of the legendary rock were fluttering in the air. Immediately after, he landed at the top of the cultivation tower. That was the highest point in the Celestial Academy, and it was as if Chu Zhanpeng was putting it under his feet. That astonished all the people in the Celestial Academy. How aggressive! The crowd was staring at Chu Zhanpeng. How aggressive! The crowd was staring at Chu Zhanpeng. The cultivation tower was a symbol of the Celestial Academy. Being able to step into the cultivation tower was an honor, and the top floor was a majestic symbol of the academy. However, Chu Zhanpeng was an outsider from the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. He came to the Celestial Academy and immediately put the cultivation tower under his feet, and his intention was obvious. What Chu Zhanpeng meant was that he looked down on the Celestial Academy. He was humiliating its members. They were humiliating every member of the Celestial Academy by disrespecting the glorious symbol of the Celestial Academy. Chu Zhanpeng was a high official after all. That made the members of the Celestial Academy infuriated, but when facing one of the 8 high officials, what could they do? Getting angry at him was useless, they couldn't fight against him. Luo Shui was also in the air and then stood on the tower. He was monstrously strong, just like Chu Zhanpeng, and they both looked at the members of the Celestial Academy with disdain. The silhouettes of all the Holy Courtyard students flickered and they all formed a perfect line. They looked down on the students of the Celestial Academy. They all looked extremely arrogant. I heard that some geniuses have appeared in the Celestial Academy. Besides, 2 of them have already broken through to the Xian Qi layer. Said Chu Zhanpeng from the top of the cultivation tower. His voice was filled with insult and sarcasm. The Celestial Academy is becoming more and more influential. Today, Luo Shui and I brought some of our fellow students so we could all learn from each other. We want to see how majestic and strong the geniuses of the Celestial Academy really are. Said Chu Zhanpeng while arrogantly glancing at the crowd. Chu Zhanpeng had broken through to the Xian Qi layer and had become one of the 8 high officials for the last 2 years. He wasn't lazy either, relying on his natural abilities. He already broke through to the 3rd Xian Qi layer, whereas the insignificant insects Qiong Bai Luo and Du Bai had only broken through to the 1st Xian Qi layer. They wouldn't be able to compete with him. Besides, Chu Zhanpeng hadn't forgotten about Lin Feng either. In fact, he had come to the Celestial Academy for 2 reasons. One reason was obviously Lin Feng. He glanced at the students of the Celestial Academy on the ground. His 2 gigantic legendary rock wings streaked through the sky and he landed on the ground. Immediately after he rose back up in the air, before landing back onto the top of the cultivation tower. Now, on his side, a beautiful woman had appeared. If Lin Feng had been there, he would definitely have recognized her. It was Lin Qian. Lin Qian was standing on top of the cultivation tower looking down on the crowd. The feeling of power invaded her heart. It seemed like her pride which had been crushed by Lin Feng was restored in an instant. Even though her natural abilities weren't as impressive as Lin Feng's, she didn't need to be monstrously strong. As long as her lover was strong enough, she would be able to crush Lin Feng. "Don't worry Qian, I will do what I promised you," said Chu Zhanpeng in a cold tone. If he had an occasion, he would definitely kill Lin Feng. He could remember back to when he had gone to the Yunhai sect. At that time, Lin Feng was still a nobody, a little insect, yet had dared to make him lose face. He should have killed Lin Feng much earlier. Lin Feng was already much stronger and he was described as a genius by the members of the Celestial Academy. He was even respected and appreciated by the second prince, Duan Wuya. However, Chu Zhanpeng wanted to use Lin Feng to feed his ego. Why is nobody replying? Is there nobody worthwhile in the Celestial Academy? Joked Chu Zhanpeng, which stupefied the crowd beneath the cultivation tower. They wanted to deny what he had just said but didn't know what to say. Actually, they really couldn't compete with Chu Zhanpeng. After all, he was one of the 8 high officials. If they contradicted him and made him angry, that would be courting death. But at that moment, some silhouettes appeared in the distance. These silhouettes flickered, they were moving at full speed. Besides, there were also some people moving through the sky. These people were teachers of the Celestial Academy, cultivators at the Xian Qi layer. They rarely came out, but at that moment, these loud and extremely arrogant people from the holy courtyard barged into the academy. How could the teachers not respond? Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui calmly and serenely looked at the silhouettes moving through the sky. They didn't look affected at all, as if they didn't even care. Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui have barged into the Celestial Academy. What is that supposed to mean? At that moment, a teacher from the Celestial Academy came forward and spoke to Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui, who were still standing on the top of the cultivation tower. I, Chu Zhanpeng, have heard that some geniuses are in the Celestial Academy. Congratulations, I admire you for that. Therefore, today, I have come with some of my fellow disciples of the Holy Courtyard to learn from you and swap some advice. The Celestial Academy is now prestigious and mighty. I hope that you will be generous and allow us to learn from its members," said Chu Zhanpeng with a smile, yet not a smile on his face. What he meant was obvious. He had come to challenge the students of the Celestial Academy. The Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu and the Celestial Academy are two great academic institutions of the Imperial City. Challenges are very normal. I know that you are unlikely to refuse," added Luo Shui, sounding ice-cold. The teacher from the Celestial Academy frowned. Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui had been famous for a while already, and he was wondering how strong they had become, but what he feared the most was that they were already able to sweep away the disciples of the Celestial Academy. Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui, what kind of advice do you seek? Since both our Holy Courtyard and your Celestial Academy can exchange a lot, we should, of course, select the same number of students. If you want a group fight, we don't mind either," replied Chu Zhanpeng. The teacher of the Celestial Academy was a bit surprised. Even though the Celestial Academy was quite strong, they had started from nothing, unlike the Holy Courtyard, which immediately gathered the best disciples from the greatest sects in the country. It was strong directly from the moment of its creation. The Celestial Academy was obviously weaker than the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu. Choosing the same number of people for a battle would definitely lead to the defeat of the Celestial Academy. They had no chance of winning. If you are afraid that it would end up in the Celestial Academy getting humiliated, we can make it even more simple. You can immediately choose the two strongest and most gifted students of the academy, and they can fight against Luo Shui and me," joked Chu Zhanpeng. The members of the Celestial Academy were insulting them in their hearts. Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui were high officials. Who could battle against them? Even Qiong Bai Luo couldn't rival them. He would definitely lose if he tried. It seemed like the Celestial Academy had absolutely no chance of winning such a challenge. "Alright, I will choose two people who will fight against you," said the teacher of the Xian Qi layer of the Celestial Academy. The crowd was dumbstruck. Surprisingly, he had agreed. Chu Zhanpeng was also astonished, but still found the situation extremely amusing. Weren't they acting too recklessly by accepting his challenge? "But not right now," added the teacher. He then added, "Soon, there will be the grand tournament of the Imperial City. At that moment, you and Luo Shui will participate as well. The students that I have chosen will also participate, and you will have a chance to fight against them during the tournament." Chu Zhanpeng was surprised. He hadn't expected his interlocutor to calculate to such a degree. Indeed, the grand tournament of the Imperial City would start soon, and as high officials, Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui were obviously going to participate. The grand tournament would be especially important for geniuses. The Celestial Academy would also pick some students to attend. Surprisingly, the teacher had also chosen that day for Chu Zhanpeng's challenge. "That's my condition, otherwise, the Celestial Academy will disregard your challenge," explained the teacher from the Celestial Academy. Chu Zhanpeng's eyes were flashing with thoughts. He remained silent for a while, then Luo Shui and he glanced at each other, immediately smiled and nodded. Luo Shui and Chu Zhanpeng would have time to prepare themselves and become even stronger during that period. It didn't seem like there was a downside. "Alright, I accept," nodded Chu Zhanpeng. "I hope that on the day, the Celestial Academy will not choose two worthless cultivators, otherwise we will be able to take advantage of it, and the Celestial Academy will become the joke of the Imperial City." joked Chu Zhanpeng. Immediately after, he rolled up his sleeves, a strong wind filled the area, the wings of the legendary rock opened, he then rose into the air and flew away. "Let's go," said Luo Shui indifferently. He immediately started floating in the air and moved through the sky as if he was taking a gentle stroll. He looked natural and relaxed. When the people of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu saw these two leave, they then all gradually started to follow. Very quickly, they all disappeared. However, their despicable and detestable behavior, even after they left, was still making the members of the Celestial Academy suffer. When the teacher saw them leaving, his eyes twinkled, he glanced at the crowd and said, "It's already been 10 years, now, the great competition of Shuiyu will start soon. I hope that you will all seize that opportunity and be even more motivated to constantly become stronger." When the teacher saw them leaving, his eyes twinkled, he glanced at the crowd and said, "It's already been 10 years, now, the great competition of Shuiyu will start soon. I hope that you will all seize that opportunity and be even more motivated to constantly become stronger." The great competition of Shuiyu. The crowd was astonished. They had already heard about it. Every 10 years, the entire region of Shuiyu held a great competition, where the elite cultivators of all the 13 countries of Shuiyu gathered. Every 10 years, when the great competition of Shuiyu took place, the entire region became more lively, while rivers of geniuses started to reveal themselves. During the rise of the geniuses, challenges and battles were important. It was also a chance to seize an opportunity. Therefore, the teacher was telling everybody to seize that opportunity, even if, that time, they couldn't participate to the great competition of Shuiyu. They could observe the incredible geniuses and try to walk down the same path, and even try to surpass them someday, becoming powerful cultivators. However, before the great competition of Shuiyu, some officials of the Dragon Mountain Empire will come to Shuiyu and choose the most outstanding cultivators from Shuiyu to participate in the competition. Continued the teacher. The empire of the Dragon Mountain was in control of Shuiyu, and it was one of the 4 great empires of Shuiyu. Shuiyu and Tianfeng were both under the control of Dragon Mountain. However, the Dragon Mountain Empire was not going to intervene in Shuiyu's internal affairs. Every 10 years, they went to Shuiyu and selected some outstanding geniuses to participate in the Shuiyu Great Competition and fight against the geniuses of the 3 other great empires. Of course, we won't let the people of the Dragon Mountain Empire come here and see a bunch of trash. Therefore, before the team from the Dragon Mountain Empire comes to Shuiyu, Shuiyu organizes its own grand tournament, which the most outstanding disciples from the country are chosen to display their strength and talent when the Dragon Mountain Empire comes to collect the talented individuals. In order to be considered as talented by the Dragon Mountain Empire, 2 factors are decisive: strength and natural abilities. If the Dragon Mountain Empire attaches importance to you, even if you are not very strong at the moments, your future is filled with countless opportunities. The teacher said, which made the crowd palpitate from excitement. Even if they were not strong enough, if they had high natural abilities, the empire might still select them. If the empire attaches importance to them, they would be able to leave Shuiyu and their future would be filled with endless opportunities. But were their natural abilities high enough to draw the attention of the empire? Many people, when they thought about it, looked disappointed again. It was much too difficult. There were many geniuses in the empire. In order to be noticed by the empire, at least in Shuiyu, they had to be extraordinary and stand out. They, of course, weren't those kinds of people. Maybe Lin Feng, with his natural abilities, would draw the empire's attention, as Lin Feng's strength wasn't yet sufficient to draw their attention. For the grand tournament, the Celestial Academy will be able to send 5 students. In other words, only 5 will be able to participate. Whether you are chosen or not and whether you will have the opportunity to be noticed by the empire depends on you. Just look at yourselves and you will know," said the teacher when he saw how excited the crowd looked. He then added, "Besides, as you saw a moment ago, amongst these 5 people, I will choose 2 people to fight against Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui." Fight against Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui. The crowd looked perplexed. Was it even possible to fight against them? Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui were two of the 8 high officials, and it had been that way for 2 years already. They were both in the Xian Qi layer when they were selected, relying on their natural abilities. How strong had they become in the past 2 years? They, at least, must have broken through to the second Xian Qi layer. The Celestial Academy had no genius who could be compared with them. Maybe Qiongbai Luo and Dubai had a chance, but Dubai was now a cripple. Of course, Lin Feng had cut off Dubai's arm. He could also be counted as one of the selected 5. Lin Feng was easily able to cut off Dubai's arm. Even though his cultivation level was lower, he could defeat cultivators at the Xian Qi layer, which meant that he was just as strong as someone in the Xian Qi layer. I already chose one of the 2 people. For the other positions, you can compete," said the teacher again. Compete? People in the crowd were secretly shaking their heads. Who would be willing to fight against one of the 8 high officials? They didn't want to die early. However, one of the fighters had already been chosen. It was probably Qiongbai Luo. He was the top student of the academy. It had to be him. Who is the person you chose? At that moment, a silhouette appeared in the distance. The crowd turned around and saw someone moving through the sky, looking majestic. It was precisely Qiongbai Luo, the top student of the academy who everybody was talking about. At that moment, he looked at the teacher and asked, "Who is the person you chose?" Qiongbai Luo seemed to care a lot about what others thought. The crowd was thrilled. It was a matter of honor for Qiongbai Luo. He was the top disciple of the academy. The one who was chosen was probably Qiongbai Luo. "It's not you," immediately refuted the teacher, which astonishing the entire crowd. They had guessed wrong. Qiongbai Luo frowned and said, "If it's not me, could it be Lin Feng?" "It's not Lin Feng either, but you 2 would definitely be part of the 5 people. As far as the battle against the high officials is concerned, Lin Feng and you have the same chance as everyone else. You can compete and the strongest will have the opportunity." "Is there even the need to compete? Since you decided that I wasn't selected even though I should have been, does that mean that you think there are others out there who are stronger than me?" Qiongbai Luo was annoyed. The person who was chosen surprisingly wasn't him. He was extremely annoyed. "Maybe you will get the spot, or maybe someone else will beat you to it," replied the teacher of the Xian Qi layer when he saw how impolitely Qiongbai Luo was talking to him and how annoyed he seemed to be. Even though Qiongbai Luo was a genius, after all, he was only considered as such within the Celestial Academy. Considering how arrogantly he was talking to his seniors, it wouldn't be surprising if, after becoming extremely strong, he started to look down on the Celestial Academy. "Bullshit. Tell me, who could possibly defeat me?" furiously shouted Qiongbai Luo. "Lin Feng could," replied the teacher in a cold and detached way while narrowing his eyes. Lin Feng, and Lin Feng again. How can you people even compare me to him? I will prove to you all how foolish you are thinking that way," screamed Qiongbai Luo in a cold tone. Back when he still hadn't broken through to the Xian Qi layer, he used to be extremely introverted and wasn't arrogant at all. After breaking through to the Xian Qi layer, he had started to grow extremely arrogant. This was because he became much stronger than Dubai and could easily become the top-ranked student of the academy. Not being able to draw every single person's attention and acknowledgement was making him furious. Since some people still doubted him, he would need to take action and show everybody that he was the best. Qiongbai Luo turned around and looked at the palace where the military students lived. He then opened his mouth. "Lin Feng, get the hell out here. Lin Feng, get the hell out here." His extremely loud voice resonated through the atmosphere for a while. It was extremely powerful. The sound of his voice continued to travel through the atmosphere and towards the horizon. Even though the palace where the military students lived was very far, when a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer shouted furiously, their voice could cover a huge distance. Inside the palace, everybody heard the voice. They couldn't help but shiver. Someone was surprisingly telling Lin Feng to get the hell out here. Silhouettes flickered. More and more people were moving towards the public square. Qiongbai Luo was standing in the air looking at the crowd. He didn't see Lin Feng. Humph, the person you speak about isn't courageous at all. Joked Xiong Bai Luo, sounding cold and detached while glancing at the teacher. Did you ever consider that he's not in the academy? Alright, let's assume he's not here. When he comes back, everybody, tell Lin Feng that I, Xiong Bai Luo, will teach him a lesson. Said Xiong Bai Luo coldly. Immediately after, he turned around, ready to leave, but at that moment, an ice-cold voice spread through the air, "Wait." Xiong Bai Luo stopped when he heard and looked at the person who was talking on the ground. Surprisingly, it was a girl, and she was wearing a fine veil over her face. She looked pure and holy. "You said that you wanted to teach Lin Feng a lesson," said Meng Qing in an ice-cold way, which made Xiong Bai Luo narrow his eyes and reply coldly, "Indeed, so what?" "Indeed. Alright, what about you try and teach me that lesson?" said Meng Qing. In the distance, a silhouette was moving towards them. That person was looking at Xiong Bai Luo and didn't want him to leave. That person's body was surrounded by burning flames which were diffusing a bright light. That person was obviously Lin Feng. Lin Feng. When the crowd saw Lin Feng, they were surprised. Lin Feng. When the crowd saw Lin Feng, they were surprised. Xiong Bai Luo was saying that Lin Feng was cowardly and that he was the only one who had the right to fight against the high officials. He was also just saying that he wanted to teach him a lesson, but now Lin Feng appeared in front of him. It seems like the fun is about to start, thought many people in the crowd as they grew excited. Xiong Bai Luo was strong enough to beat Du Bai. Lin Feng had also defeated Du Bai and cut off his arm with a single strike. Therefore, how could people not be impatient to see Lin Feng and Xiong Bai Luo battle? That battle would definitely be marvelous. It was the most anticipated battle in the academy. Everybody considered Xiong Bai Luo and Lin Feng as the two best students of the academy. When Meng Qing saw Lin Feng arrive, her ice-cold chi completely vanished. Since he had come, Xiong Bai Luo would be left for him. When Xiong Luo saw Lin Feng moving through the sky, he narrowed his eyes. Lin Feng was rushing through the sky looking completely relaxed. Was he really still in the Ling Qi layer? Had he really not broken through to the Xian Qi layer? Lin Feng, did you break through to the Xian Qi layer? Asked Xiong Bai Luo indifferently. Indeed, said Lin Feng while stopping and looking at Xiong Bai Luo. He didn't hide anything. You and me are the same, we are both cultivators at the Xian Qi layer. I really don't understand where your arrogance comes from and what makes you think that you could teach me anything. Humph, snorted Xiong Bai Luo coldly. He felt relieved and didn't even reply to Lin Feng. Instead he just made fun of him. If you were a cultivator of the Ling Qi layer, I would have esteem for you. Defeating a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer, like Du Bai, when at the Ling Qi layer is something admirable, but now, it's a different story. You actually broke through to the Xian Qi layer, which is the reason you defeated Du Bai. It's not even something worth mentioning, said Xiong Bai Luo with disdain. When the crowd heard that, they all agreed with him. That's how it was. Lin Feng had surprisingly broken through to the Xian Qi layer. No wonder Lin Feng was able to defeat Du Bai, but for his age, having broken through to the Xian Qi layer was already something terrifying. If they knew that Lin Feng was still in the Ling Qi layer when he defeated Du Bai and that he had broken through to the Xian Qi layer after that, how would they react? Even Xiong Bai Luo wouldn't believe such a tale. Lin Feng didn't bother to explain anything either. There were some things which he didn't need to explain, he just needed to use his actions to make people believe. It's not worth mentioning. Strange, because when you defeated Du Bai after breaking through, you became even more arrogant and conceited, thinking that you were the best in the academy, so when you defeat Du Bai, it's more prestigious than when I do. Joked Lin Feng. Even though he heard that Xiong Bai Luo used to be introverted and modest in the past, that was the past, these days he had become extremely arrogant. Maybe because he no longer had any pressure and wasn't concealing his real nature anymore, he wanted to be famous and admired by everyone. I already said it, I will prove to everybody that I am right, I will show everybody that you, Lin Feng, cannot be compared with the likes of me. When Qiong Bai Luo finished talking, he released an ice-cold energy which surrounded Lin Feng. Lin Feng, I initially just wanted to defeat you, nothing more, but since you fail to appreciate my kindness and behave in such an arrogant manner, I will cripple your cultivation. Just take this as a lesson and in the future, know your place. Arrogant. Cripple his cultivation. Know his place. Lin Feng was dumbstruck. Qiong Bai Luo kept provoking him and then dared say that he was the one being arrogant. Qiong Bai Luo considered himself as the only person who could be proud and others should just praise and worship him. Don't you touch him. At that moment, a voice came from the distance. It wasn't a loud voice but it pierced through people's eardrums, making everyone freeze for a moment. That voice seemed to contain a sound attack. People raised their heads and saw silhouettes on the horizon. These people were riding white cranes, the scene was magnificent. Huh. The crowd looked perplexed though, they were wondering who these people were to surprisingly prevent Qiong Bai Luo from attacking Lin Feng. Of course, some people also started to shake when they saw these people approaching. It was the Yu clan, these people belonged to the Yu clan. Why were they coming to the Celestial Academy? Besides, they weren't allowing Qiong Bai Luo to fight against Lin Feng. Was Lin Feng suddenly friendly with the Yu clan? In the past, Lin Feng had had a huge conflict with the Bai clan, which also involved the Yu clan. Besides, he also had direct conflicts with the Yu clan. Qiong Bai Luo frowned, he could recognize these people as well, especially their leader. He had met him once, it was an elder of the Yu clan who was extremely strong. Could it be that he has an agreement with the Yu clan? Thought Qiong Bai Luo. His life is ours, the Yu clan's. Nobody can touch him. Said the elder of the Yu clan, which made the people shiver. These people were really of the Yu clan and had also really come because of Lin Feng, however, they hadn't come to help him but to personally kill him. Lin Feng had surprisingly offended the Yu clan. The furious Yu clan had thus dispatched so many strong cultivators to kill Lin Feng. He really was extremely bold and daring. Qiong Bai Luo was stupefied as well, but immediately after, he found the situation amusing. He glanced at the people of the Yu clan and then at Lin Feng. As expected, this guy overestimates himself. He doesn't know how vast the world is. Said Qiong Bai Luo indifferently. In Xueyu, there were many geniuses but clans as strong as the Yu clan, such strong clans were extremely rare. Relying on his natural abilities, Lin Feng provoked the Yu clan, he really wanted to die. Lin Feng was just an ignorant fool. As you wish, I initially wanted to cripple his cultivation but since he offended the Yu clan, you can have him. Said Qiong Bai Luo as if he had given a gift to the Yu clan. Whoever disposed of him, it seemed like he was definitely going to suffer with no possibility of escape. Why do you want to cripple his cultivation? Asked the elder of the Yu clan. I can't bear the sight of his face so I wanted to cripple his cultivation. Replied Qiong Bai Luo while slightly nodding and smiling, as if he was talking about something trivial. He can't bear the sight him, so he wants to cripple his cultivation. What nerve! Thought the crowd. Qiong Bai Luo initially disdained Lin Feng and didn't want to fight against him. Alright, initially, I wanted to attack personally but I like your reason, Lin Feng is yours, you can cripple his cultivation but don't kill him. Said the elder in a cold and detached tone. Qiong Bai Luo was a bit surprised but smiled immediately after. He then cupped his hands obediently and said politely, since it's that way, I will not restrain myself anymore and cripple his cultivation, his life will remain yours. Yes. Nodded the elder. They seemed to be in perfect harmony as if they were hunting and Lin Feng was their prey. Qiong Bai Luo slowly turned around and looked at Lin Feng. A mocking smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Lin Feng, you are pathetic. Said Qiong Bai Luo. That time, Lin Feng didn't say anything, pure sun qi started revolving around his fist. Immediately after, Lin Feng rushed forward and in a flash, as if he teleported there, he appeared in front of Qiong Bai Luo. Lin Feng was covered in flames, from head to toe. It was extremely dazzling. Pure sun chi was violently burning around his fist. It no longer looked like it was a fist but instead looked like a small sun. Lin Feng was surrounded by intense flames. These flames surrounded his fist which shot like a meteor towards Qiong Bai Luo. Everything happened in an instant. Qiong Bai Luo's facial expression drastically changed. He quickly condensed his pure chi to block Lin Feng's fist. He had also thought about dodging but considering how arrogant he was acting towards Lin Feng, did he have the face to dodge the attack? Lin Feng's fist was much too quick, he couldn't dodge even if he wanted to, all he could do was defend against it. Boom! An extremely violent and brutal chi spread through the atmosphere, the fist covered in flames rushed through the air and the crowd could see Qiong Bai Luo's body being sent flying backwards. Surprisingly, his body was engulfed in flames. When Lin Feng's fist struck, his body was engulfed in scorching hot flames. Pure chi was released which extinguished the flames on his body but Qiong Bai Luo was still burnt black. Lin Feng's eyes looked incredibly cold even though they were surrounded by flames. "You talk crap, considering how weak you are the pathetic one," said Lin Feng, after which a hideous expression appeared on Qiong Bai Luo's face. People raised their head to look at Lin Feng who was surrounded by golden flames. People raised their head to look at Lin Feng who was surrounded by golden flames. "It seems like we underestimated Lin Feng," thought the crowd. Lin Feng's fist was powerful enough to blow Qiong Bai Luo away, besides, his body was engulfed by flames. Lin Feng wasn't by any means weak, he was much stronger than they had thought. Many of them had still thought that Lin Feng couldn't compete with Qiong Bai Luo, but they were proved wrong. It was possible that Lin Feng was even at the same level of strength as Qiong Bai Luo. But that would make an even better fight, the crowd was even more excited. Being able to witness such a battle was something they longed for day and night. Not bad, at least that battle will not be too boring. If you were too weak, it would be pointless to fight, said Qiong Bai Luo who didn't look glum anymore, a cold smile had appeared on his face. He even released a little bit of his battle energy and looked very excited. The stronger Lin Feng was, the more exciting the battle would be. Qiong Bai Luo hoped that Lin Feng would be stronger than he expected. How egotistic, joked Lin Feng when he saw Qiong Bai Luo's forced smile. Considering his temperament, Qiong Bai Luo wanted to destroy Lin Feng in one attack to display his strength and feed his ego, that was the only way for him to look prestigious. However, what he just said was just a way to convince himself that he was stronger than Lin Feng, he was being extremely self-centered. "I will make things even more interesting for you then," said Lin Feng, and immediately after, a sword appeared in his hands. It was bright and illuminated the entire atmosphere. It was impossible to escape from its dazzling brightness, that sword seemed to be burning with the power of the sun, the sword was like a sun illuminating the world. Many rays of light emerged from the sword making the crowd narrow their eyes, they couldn't look at it. Their hearts started pounding, how scary. Lin Feng's sword was scorching hot like the sun. Blue Void Spirit. When Qiong Bai Luo saw that sword, his heart twitched, immediately after, he released his spirit. Raindrops appeared behind him and then turned into a curtain of heavy rain. However, while Qiong Bai Luo was releasing his spirit, Lin Feng rushed forward and his sword light blinded many of the onlookers. That sword was a radiant sword. Qiong Bai Luo's facial expression drastically changed and his heavy rain curtain started moving towards Lin Feng's sword to isolate it. At the same time, he retreated back at lightning speed. Sirrr. Sirrr. The rain curtain of the Blue Void Spirit was sliced apart and then Lin Feng's dazzling sword slashed into Qiong Bai Luo's chest. Dark red blood splashed through the air and a deep wound appeared on Qiong Bai Luo's chest. If he had been a little bit slower or if he hadn't used his heavy rain curtain, the sword would have sliced his body into 2 parts. "You're even weaker than I thought," said Lin Feng while looking at Xiong Bai Luo. He didn't kill him, he basically didn't care about Xiong Bai Luo. The whole fight was because Xiong Bai Luo wanted to use Lin Feng to prove how strong he was to everyone in the academy. Lin Feng thus decided to help him achieve his aim and show him how ridiculous he was being. These 2 silhouettes were floating in the sky. Lin Feng looked carefree while Xiong Bai Luo looked weak as he was struggling to stay in the air. While looking at the scene, the crowd couldn't believe their eyes. What they thought was the complete opposite of the reality. Xiong Bai Luo should have been the arrogant victor after defeating Lin Feng in 1 strike, however at that moment, the reality was completely different. Lin Feng didn't fight often but each time he did, it was extremely brutal. Each time, the crowd got to know his personality better. At the time when he had fought against He Mo, Lin Feng was unknown and He Mo was one of the top 10 students of the academy. Everybody saw the result. The second time that Lin Feng had fought at the Celestial Academy was against Du Gushang. In the end, Du Gushang had ended up kneeling in front of Lin Feng. The third time was against Du Bai and he had cut off his arm. It was a shocking and amazing battle. And then, when everybody thought that Xiong Bai Luo would easily defeat Lin Feng surprised them again. Lin Feng said that Xiong Bai Luo was much weaker than he thought. The crowd had thought that Lin Feng wouldn't be able to withstand a single attack and they believed that Lin Feng would inevitably lose the battle. But Lin Feng didn't even care about Xiong Bai Luo. Lin Feng had actually always looked beyond Xiong Bai Luo and had never considered him as an opponent or rival. "Is that so?" said Xiong Bai Luo looking extremely sharp. Behind him, his blue void spirit twinkled and flashed. He then whispered, "Blue void underworld." Lin Feng could cut through the raindrop curtain but how would he break out from the blue void underworld? In the sky, raindrop threads appeared and immediately transformed into a raindrop curtain which started to pour down around Lin Feng. "Let me see how you will escape this," said Xiong Bai Luo in an ice-cold way when he saw Lin Feng being surrounded by the blue void spirit. "Are you looking closely?" said a cold and indifferent voice from behind the raindrop curtain. The silhouette in the middle of the raindrop curtain split in 2 and suddenly there were multiple Lin Fengs. It was an afterimage left by his quick movements. After dodging, Lin Feng was still standing in the middle of the raindrop curtain and looking down at Xiong Bai Luo indifferently, as if he wasn't even moved by such trivial things. The blue void underworld was invisible and inaudible but it was real. Raindrops immediately started pouring. The fluctuations were very subtle and it was almost impossible to dodge that attack because by the time a cultivator sensed that it was close, it was already too late. However, Lin Feng could perceive even the tiniest movement due to his earth fusion. Even the slightest change couldn't escape his awareness. At the moment when the raindrops became visible, Lin Feng had already moved. "How is this possible?" whispered Xiong Bai Luo who was stupefied. Surprisingly, Lin Feng had already dodged the blue void spirit and appeared behind it. "How was that possible?" "It's a coincidence, I must be right, he's just lucky and luckily managed to dodge at the right time." Xiong Bai Luo's eyes looked ice-cold. In the sky, the raindrop curtain dispersed and Lin Feng appeared. Xiong Bai Luo and Lin Feng stared at each other. Suddenly, Lin Feng disappeared from his initial position. However, Lin Feng's initial position was suddenly attacked by the blue void spirit. Xiong Bai Luo was astonished. Was it a coincidence? Was Lin Feng really just lucky? The best way to dodge the blue void underworld was to be constantly changing position, not giving any opportunity for the attacks to begin. However, Lin Feng had dodged it the first time, and the second time, but Lin Feng just been standing there waiting for it and still dodged it as easily as before. "It seems like you rely on your worthless little spirit to act so arrogantly. Without the power of your spirit, you're nothing, you wouldn't even be Du Bai's opponent," said Lin Feng when he saw that Xiong Bai Luo was looking desperate. Lin Feng was exasperated. A cultivator's spirit was linked to their cultivation. It was very important for a cultivator. An extremely strong spirit helped a cultivator become stronger much faster, but if a cultivator forgot about cultivating himself and only relied on his spirit, his expertise became extremely limited to the power of his spirit. In the end, they would be a worthless cultivator. Cultivation required a spirit, but by only relying on a spirit's power, a cultivator would never become truly strong themselves. At that moment, Lin Feng had taught Xiongbai Luo a good lesson. The crowd agreed with him. They realized that Xiongbai Luo hadn't ever shown his strength. He always just relied on his spirit, but because his spirit was extremely strong, people had forgotten about his actual strength. They had just always considered Xiongbai Luo as an extremely strong cultivator and believed that Lin Feng couldn't compete with him. But the reality was far from that. You said that you wanted to cripple my cultivation and teach me a lesson. Well, then I will cripple your cultivation so that in the future, you will know your place," said Lin Feng, which stupefied the crowd. Xiongbai Luo was acting incredibly egocentric. Cripple Lin Feng so in the future, he would know his place. What would be the point of knowing one's place at that moment anyway? Lin Feng was going to apply the principle of a tooth for a tooth. Xiongbai Luo had said this previously to Lin Feng, so Lin Feng just repeated it back to him. Lin Feng slightly raised his fist and flames appeared around his fists. They were scorching hot. The temperature increased and it quickly became an immense heat. "Die!" said Lin Feng. Deadly energy filled the atmosphere. He rushed forwards and his fist bombarded the atmosphere, moving straight towards Xiongbai Luo. Blue void drizzle. This time, Xiongbai Luo reacted much faster and rain started to pour down. It looked like a river was falling from the sky. It blocked Lin Feng's path to prevent him from moving closer. "You're not the only person who possesses a spirit," smiled Lin Feng. A purple glow started to zigzag through the air towards Xiongbai Luo, which made his facial expression drastically change. His blue void drizzle was obstructing Lin Feng's path, so he could not use it to block the purple spirit, or he would need to deal with Lin Feng's fist instead. "Blue void underworld!" furiously shouted Xiongbai Luo, unable to resist much more. His silhouette flickered and he suddenly rushed towards the Yu clan, which astonished the crowd. "His life is yours." Xiongbai Luo looked at the elder of the Yu clan. Lin Feng slowly turned to look at Xiongbai Luo. Lin Feng looked terribly amused. Those people who only cared about their prestige and honor were extremely arrogant, but inside, they were just cowardly insects. Arrogant as they were, when they faced danger, they always resorted to unscrupulous or cowardly methods, but the cultivators who had lofty and unyielding characters would continue fighting even if dying was the outcome. Those types of people would fight to protect their honor and integrity. When the elder of the Yu clan heard Xiongbai Luo, he looked at him and smiled in a deep and profound way. When the elder of the Yu clan heard Xiongbai Luo, he looked at him and smiled in a deep and profound way. "You said that you wanted to cripple his cultivation yourself. I agreed, but now, you have lost." "Huh?" Xiongbai Luo frowned and looked surprised. He remained silent for a moment and then added, "Yes, I did lose, therefore, I want to give him to you." "Want? You lost, who cares about you want? I don't need you to give me anything. When you finish your fight, I will attack, but not before that," said the elder in cold and indifferent way while shaking his head, which made the crowd sigh. How lamentable! The crowd had thought that Xiongbai Luo was the best student of the academy and Lin Feng the second best student, but the reality was much different. They were dumbstruck. The person they considered as the best student couldn't even be compared with Lin Feng. Lin Feng had easily defeated Xiongbai Luo. Then, because Xiongbai Luo was defeated, he wanted to give Lin Feng to the Yu clan, but the people of the Yu clan refused. The elder's smile could also be perceived as a threat. Xiongbai Luo looked at the elder's cold eyes and immediately turned around again. He looked at Lin Feng and said, "This time, I lost. Lin Feng, you are the best student in the Celestial Academy, that honor is now yours." Let's shake hands and make peace, alright? When Lin Feng heard Xiong Bai Luo, he was stupefied. Lin Feng found all of this very amusing. Xiong Bai Luo had thought that he would easily defeat Lin Feng and wanted to cripple his cultivation to prove how strong he was. Since he had lost, he wanted to shake hands and make peace. Was such a thing even possible? Didn't you want to cripple my cultivation? Said Lin Feng with a cold smile, making Xiong Bai Luo narrow his eyes. He turned around again, looked at the elder and said, "What do you want me to do?" "Join my clan, the Yu clan," said the elder sounding cold and indifferent. "Alright, but there is one condition," replied Xiong Bai Luo, who had no other choice. "A condition? Then forget about it, the Yu clan doesn't lack people wanting to join," replied the elder while smiling coldly, which astonished Xiong Bai Luo. He then said in a weak voice, "Alright, I will leave everything behind me and become a member of the Yu clan." "I'm not talking about being a member, I'm talking about becoming a servant. From today, you will do everything that the Yu clan requests of you," said the elder with an ice-cold smile. A member? Ridiculous. Even though his natural abilities were not bad, with his temperament he was doomed to make enemies. Why would they want him if they couldn't dispose of him? When Xiong Bai Luo heard the word servant, he pulled a long face. The Yu clan wanted him to become their servant, how abominable. The crowd was also astonished. The elder of the Yu clan wanted one of their fellow students, of the Celestial Academy, to become a mere servant. Making him no better than a slave, wasn't that a humiliation for the Celestial Academy? "I will give you 10 seconds to think it over," said the elder of the Yu clan coldly, which made Xiong Bai Luo's heart violently twitch. He, Xiong Bai Luo, was going to become a servant. His face turned deathly pale. Xiong Bai Luo looked at Lin Feng again while gnashing his teeth and biting his lip, blood even streaked from his lip. "I agree," replied Xiong Bai Luo. He finally replied. Xiong Bai Luo had actually accepted to become a servant of the Yu clan. Phew! The crowd down on the ground was sighing. Hatred invaded their eyes. Xiong Bai Luo was really audacious. He surprisingly became one of the Yu clan servants. Who would want that kind of genius? He was scum, a worthless human being. The crowd felt like they had all just lost face. A genius of their academy, the one they even considered as the best student of the entire academy, was going to become the Yu clan's servant. What a joke. When they remembered how arrogant he used to be and how they worshipped him, they felt disgust from the bottom of their hearts. Xiong Bai Luo was far from ever being as great as Lin Feng. "Very good, so you are now the Yu clan servant," said the elder while smiling. He then said indifferently, "Come and stand behind me." Xiong Bai Luo lowered his head and moved behind the elder, while glancing at Lin Feng. He looked extremely glum. Everything that was happening was because of Lin Feng. If Lin Feng wasn't there, Xiong Bai Luo would still be the best student of the Celestial Academy and everybody would adore him. How could things end this way? Everything had gone wrong because of Lin Feng. At that moment, Xiong Bai Luo had already forgotten that he was the one who had been provoking Lin Feng all the time. He wanted to defeat Lin Feng and cripple his cultivation to prove his strength to everyone. "How pitiful," said Lin Feng coldly while looking at Xiong Bai Luo. Even though Xiong Bai Luo had lost, his talent was unquestionable. Apart from Lin Feng, Xiong Bai Luo was also a dazzling star of the Celestial Academy, but now, he was reduced to being a servant. That was pitiful. What is pitiful? You, Lin Feng, wouldn't even get the chance to become a Yu clan servant. You are doomed, Lin Feng. The only possible escape is death and nobody will save you. The elder was staring at Lin Feng with clear killing intent. Lin Feng had to die here. Are you trying to intimidate me? Said Lin Feng sounding indifferent. He then said slowly, "This is the Celestial Academy." The elder frowned and immediately adopted a normal facial expression again before saying in a cold way, "So what? Regardless of how you view the Celestial Academy, you shouldn't cause trouble here. You should know that much better than me." No, I don't know what you mean and nothing will stop me from killing you," said the elder while smiling coldly and indifferently. He then moved forwards and jumped from the white crane. However, at the same time, the sound of a zither spread through the atmosphere. Only one sound spread through the air, but it immediately caused the elder to stop. The elder raised his head and looked at the direction that the zither sound was coming from. He suddenly felt relieved. "It's the eternal misty rain, I greet Senior," said the elder of the Yu clan. The zither sound from the distance startled everybody except for Lin Feng, who was well aware of who it came from. "Yan Yu Ping Sheng, the zither sound a moment ago came from him. Get lost." These words echoed through the atmosphere. That voice didn't sound furious at all, it sounded calm, serene, soft and gentle, but the elder's heart twitched. Who would dare to refuse Yan Yu Ping Sheng? "I will of course obey Senior Yan Yu's order," said the elder of the Yu clan, sounding calm. Immediately after, he turned around, raised his hand and waved. Immediately, all the members of the Yu clan retreated. Xiong Bai Luo was astonished. Leave? They would just leave like that? They weren't going to kill Lin Feng. Eternal misty rain, what did that mean? And who was that Senior Yan Yu? Xiong Bai Luo coldly glanced at Lin Feng and saw that he was casually moving past the Yu clan, which stupefied him. He was acting so calm. Very quickly, the Yu clan disappeared without trace. Lin Feng looked at the people who were leaving as he was leaving the public square. They all left. The crowd looked at the vast and broad sky while remaining silent. The mighty Yu clan immediately left because of the order that Senior Yan Yu gave. Who was Yan Yu Xingping in reality? It seemed like he was even more majestic and powerful than Long Ding. The members of the Yu clan didn't even care about Long Ding, but they seemed to be scared of Yan Yu. Everybody wanted to understand the situation, but one thing that was clear to them was Lin Feng's position as the best student of the Celestial Academy. Nobody could deny that. Lin Feng arrived at the peach orchard. He wasn't moving through the sky anymore, he was walking on the ground. He slowly entered the pavilion and Yan Yu Xingping was still playing the zither there. It seemed like the thing that he dedicated his life to was the zither. "Teacher, what is going on?" asked Lin Feng. Even though the Yu clan was powerful and wanted to kill him, after the words said by Yan Yu Xingping, they immediately left without a word. "They are investigating you, they want to know every single detail of your background," replied Yan Yu Xingping, sounding indifferent, which surprised Lin Feng a little bit. They wanted to know everything about him. Was there anything interesting even worth knowing? Don't you think the events that happened in the lovesick forest seemed a bit strange? Asked Yan Yu Xingping while raising his head to look at Lin Feng, which made Lin Feng suddenly realize something. What surprised Lin Feng even more was that Yan Yu Xingping seemed to have the answers. "It is very strange, indeed," replied Lin Feng while slightly nodding his head. It seemed like Duan Wuya had planned everything. Lin Feng killed Yu Tianxing and Yu Qiu had come to avenge him, but instead he had his cultivation crippled by the people from the lovesick forest. Why had the people of the lovesick forest come to help him? Lin Feng didn't feel like randomly guessing, but Yan Yu Xingping was creating even more questions. "Lin Feng, they think that you might have some sort of connection with the lovesick forest. As they are unable to find the real truth, they came to the academy in an attempt to find out," replied Yan Yu Xingping, but Lin Feng shivered. Yan Yu Xingping's voice was soft and calm, giving Lin Feng the impression that he was a wise and farsighted man. Perhaps Lin Feng had a connection with them. Yan Yu Xingping was actually a very straightforward person. In the imperial city, people thought that the Yu clan was the clan with the most mysterious. They handled affairs very discreetly, to the extent that the juniors didn't even know why their clan was so prestigious. They were just used to hearing it said by others. Sometimes the elders would talk about how nobody dared to offend the Yu clan. In the imperial city, people thought that the Yu clan was the clan with the most mysterious. They handled affairs very discreetly, to the extent that the juniors didn't even know why their clan was so prestigious, they were just used to hearing it said by others. Sometimes the elders would talk about how nobody dared to offend the Yu clan. In the eastern part of the city, there was a chain of mountains which were covered with bamboo forests. It was a magnificent landscape. Between two of the mountains, there was a bright green field on which there was a palace and a courtyard built. This was the location of the Yu clan. At that moment, in the middle of the bamboo forest, two people were playing chess. One of them was middle-aged with dashing eyebrows, starry eyes, and he looked majestic. The other one was an old man with white hair, but he still looked vigorous and energetic. "Father, Meng He has been having trouble recently." At that moment, the majestic middle-aged man spoke while making his move. The white-haired old man didn't reply and instead was looking at the chessboard. He looked irresolute, but after a while, he made his move and said, "Even though some pieces are outside of the game, they can still influence its course." The middle-aged man remained silent for a moment while touching various pieces irresolutely without making his move. He then said, "Well, should we allow them to stay outside or should we extinguish the fire?" When the middle-aged man finished talking, he made his move. Considering her temperament, it would be better if she didn't get too infuriated. "Have you ever seen the child?" asked the old man, sounding aggrieved. The middle-aged man nodded and replied, "He's a genius, not much difference between him and Lin Hai. If he works hard, he will become an incredible genius. It's really an ill-fated relationship," sighed the old man. In his mind, there was an image of a fearless young man. "How's Tian Chen?" asked the old man again. This time, the middle-aged man slightly shook his head and only said one word, "No." "Give him some freedom, don't restrain him too much," said the old man while nodding. "Father, how should we handle it?" asked the handsome middle-aged man. The old man remained silent for a moment and then immediately stood up. He gazed into the distance and said, "The event of the decade is quickly approaching, bring Tian Ming back, and if Tian Ming gets angry, speak of the marriage alliance." When he finished talking, the old man left. When the middle-aged man heard the old man, a sharp light flashed in his eyes. He then silently nodded. Those days, in the imperial city, the situation was very unstable, which was a great opportunity. They needed to bring Tian Ming back to the imperial city. In the middle of the peach orchard, Lin Feng was silent. He still couldn't figure out with whom he had connections with. "Teacher, you helped me once again," said Lin Feng to Yan Yuxingping, who had helped him a few times. "It wasn't me, I was just told to ensure your safety within the territory of the Celestial Academy," replied Yan Yuxingping while shaking his head, which stupefied Lin Feng. "Who asked you?" asked Lin Feng. "I should take you somewhere," replied Yan Yuxingping while raising his head. Lin Feng nodded and then only saw Yan Yuxingping put his zither away, shake his body and immediately jump up into the air. "How fast?" Lin Feng was stupefied. He then stomped his feet onto the ground, condensed some pure qi and his body shot into the air like an arrow, leaving the bow and rushed towards Yan Yuxingping, trying to catch up with his speed. Yan Yuxingping was leading the way and Lin Feng was following behind. They were rushing through the air together. People of the Qi layer could jump 100 meters into the air, while people of the Ling Qi layer could, relying one single jump, travel 1,000 meters into the air, and they were even able to stay there for a very short time. Cultivators of the Xian Qi layer, provided that they had enough pure Qi, could fly through the air. However, cultivators at the lower layers of the Xian Qi layer couldn't fly for long distances, because it required too much pure Qi, especially when moving at high speeds. Yan Yuping Sheng was already able to easily fly through the air. Authentically strong cultivators had the power to fly through the skies and destroy mountains. These weren't lies. Lin Feng was struggling to catch up to Yan Yuping Sheng, as if he was meticulously being tested, forcing him to use his full strength to keep up. At that moment, under Lin Feng's feet, the pure Qi was scorching hot, just like an intense fire. He didn't stop moving forward, and at the same time, sunlight was penetrating into Lin Feng's body. His entire body was like a burning meteorite. Lin Feng was also extremely quick and closely followed Yan Yupingsheng. Lin Feng was the only person who knew just how exhausting it was to keep up for this long. Lin Feng also didn't know how long they flew, but finally, at some point, Yan Yupingsheng slowed down and said to Lin Feng, "We've arrived, let's get down." When he finished talking, Yan Yupingsheng swooped down to the ground. Lin Feng looked under his feet. There was a magnificent palace surrounded by a tranquil forest, which made his heartbeat accelerate. The Imperial Palace, the place where Yan Yupingsheng had brought Lin Feng, was the Imperial Palace. Lin Feng looked at Yan Yupingsheng on the ground and felt exhausted. Flying through the sky was a great feeling, but it consumed too much energy. The spirit was willing but the flesh was weak. Lin Feng attentively observed the surroundings. It looked like a quiet mountain village. There wasn't only a magnificent and majestic palace, but there were also rivers, mountains and bamboo forests, just like a microcosm. That place was gorgeous. Lin Feng found the scenery pleasing to both the eye and the mind. At that moment, Lin Feng was a bit surprised. He could clearly perceive that in some dark places, people were staring at them. These were the guards. But Lin Feng felt at ease. In the palace, that was absolutely normal. "Let's go in," said Yan Yupingsheng as he started walking. Surprisingly, they could freely wander in the manor. There was a stone bridge and many covered corridors. Yan Yupingsheng seemed to be extremely familiar with the palace. "It seems like teacher's social status is extraordinary," thought Lin Feng while looking at Yan Yupingsheng's back. A moment after, Lin Feng and Yan Yupingsheng arrived in front of a stream and a forest. Finally, there were some people. Many people wanted to penetrate into the depths of the forest. However, 2 females were preventing them from entering. Nobody could get in. These young people had no choice but to leave. At that moment, they also noticed Lin Feng and Yan Yupingsheng. They couldn't help but look nervous. "Senior Yan Yu, can you take us inside please?" asked the people walking towards Yan Yupingsheng, but he just slightly shook his head and said, "If she's willing to see you, she will." After saying this, Yan Yupingsheng and Lin Feng entered the forest. Everybody was stupefied when they saw that, and some people shouted, "Well then why is he allowed inside?" "Because she desperately wants to see him again," replied Yan Yupingsheng indifferently. After that, Lin Feng could clearly sense some cold energy piercing his back. They entered the forest. Around them were cliffs and precipices. They were as clear as mirrors. There were also many trees and rivers. Mountains, water, grass, everything was there. The atmosphere was filled with the sounds of the flowing streams and rivers. A gorgeous and splendid silhouette was standing in front of a precipice. She was painting something. Maybe she was too concentrated, but she didn't notice Lin Feng and Yan Yupingsheng. Yan Yupingsheng smiled at Lin Feng and nodded. Immediately after, he turned around and left Lin Feng there. He didn't have to say anything. Lin Feng already understood. At the moment when he had seen that it was the Imperial Palace, Lin Feng had already thought about it. In the Imperial Palace, there was only one person who was interested in Lin Feng and who could have asked Yan Yupingsheng to protect Lin Feng. Of course, it was her. Lin Feng walked normally, slowly approached that lithe and graceful silhouette. When he arrived near her, he clearly saw the image in the painting, which abruptly made his heartbeat accelerate. "It's not the same. There is no romantic charm," said a soft and gentle voice. Immediately after, she raised her long and slender hand. She wanted to erase everything. "Am I really that handsome?" interrupted Lin Feng, which made her hand stop in the air. She turned her head and saw Lin Feng. Her cheeks turned red in a flash. However, Lin Feng was staring at the portrait on the wall. Divine, majestic, long fluttering hair, it depicted a free and unrestrained young man. If it wasn't Lin Feng, who else could it be? "Lin Feng, how did you get in here?" asked Duan Xin. She had never thought that Lin Feng would suddenly appear. She was pleasantly surprised. "Yan Yupingsheng brought me here," replied Lin Feng. Yan Yuping Sheng had silently brought Lin Feng inside, but Lin Feng still didn't know exactly what the relationship was between Yan Yuping Sheng and Duan Xinyi. Oh, no wonder, whispered Duan Xinyi. She knew that Yan Yuping Sheng was giving her an opportunity. Xinyi, you and teacher Yan Yu? Asked Lin Feng curiously. He's my teacher, he teaches me to play the zither, replied Duan Xinyi, which relieved Lin Feng. No wonder Yan Yuping Sheng could come and leave as he wished. He was the princess music teacher. That was, indeed, an extremely important position. Other than the young people, a moment ago, there were also nobles with close ties to the imperial family who were extremely respectful towards Yan Yuping Sheng. It was obvious that Yan Yuping Sheng's social status was extraordinary. Other than the young people, a moment ago, there were also nobles with close ties to the imperial family who were extremely respectful towards Yan Yuping Sheng. It was obvious that Yan Yuping Sheng's social status was extraordinary. Yan Yuping Sheng surprisingly favors the princess, thought Lin Feng, otherwise, he wouldn't have brought Lin Feng here to give her the opportunity to meet him again. Lin Feng, I'm leaving, you can head back on your own later. At that moment, a very loud voice spread through the atmosphere, and Lin Feng saw a silhouette in the distance. It was Yan Yuping Sheng. Lin Feng was a bit surprised and smiled wryly while shaking his head. Yan Yuping Sheng was leaving Lin Feng behind in the imperial palace. Duan Xinyi also looked surprised when she saw Yan Yuping Sheng leave. She immediately said, Lin Feng, what do you think about my painting skill? The painting has much more charm than I do. Lin Feng smiled. Duan Xinyi's portrait was really splendid. You're just being nice, whispered Duan Xinyi while looking shy. She then pulled Lin Feng and said, come with me. Duan Xinyi took Lin Feng to a cave. When they arrived near the cave, Lin Feng discovered a place of exceptional charm and beauty. The pieces of furniture were in a picturesque scene. It looked extremely graceful and elegant. A moment after, Duan Xinyi brought Lin Feng into a room inside the cave. Inside, there was the sweet fragrance of a young girl. The room looked exactly like a young lady's sleeping chamber. Lin Feng, I live here. I like calmness and tranquility, so I decided to live here. Nobody can bother me when I'm here, said Duan Xinyi in a soft and gentle voice. Immediately after, she pointed to some paintings. When Lin Feng saw these portraits, he was stupefied. The entire wall was covered in portraits. All of them were of the same person, Lin Feng. When he saw these portraits, Lin Feng felt his heart tremble. If he hadn't met Meng Qing, then he would have engaged in a relationship with Duan Xinyi, the beautiful princess, without hesitation. Lin Feng, aren't these portraits better than the one outside? Duan Xinyi was looking at Lin Feng with her beautiful and limpid eyes, looking slightly impatient. They are all very beautiful, replied Lin Feng. Duan Xinyi's eyes twinkled. She then pulled Lin Feng towards the edge of the bed and said, Lin Feng, sit down, I want you to taste the tea I make. This. Lin Feng looked embarrassed. That was Duan Xinyi's room, and that bed was the bed in which a princess slept. It even smelt like her. Lin Feng was embarrassed to be pulled onto the bed. Lin Feng, are you still embarrassed about such things when you are with me? Said Duan Xinyi softly. She then immediately started boiling water for the tea. Lin Feng smiled wryly and looked at Duan Xinyi, who looked really clumsy. He couldn't help but smile and shake his head. She was a princess, she probably rarely did such things herself. Lin Feng looked around him, while looking at all the portraits of him. He was wondering if Duan Xinyi was thinking about him every day. Xinyi, let me do it, said Lin Feng, walking towards Duan Xinyi, trying to take the cup that she was holding. No need. I can do it, said Duan Xinyi while drawing back her hand. Then, water splashed, Duan Xinyi screamed, and then the cup fell to the ground. Duan Xinyi wanted to catch the teacup but Lin Feng grabbed her hand and prevented her from moving, then the sound of the teacup breaking into pieces broke the silence. However, Duan Xinyi seemed like she hadn't even heard it, she just lowered her head and looked at the palm of her hand. It's just a teacup, it doesn't matter. Pure qi started undulating in Lin Feng's hand which was holding onto her hand and started to heal her minor burns. He then opened his hand again. Duan Xinyi was looking at the hand leaving hers and she suddenly felt a bit sad yet she smiled warmly and gently. "Let's go take a walk," said Lin Feng. He found it too strange to stay in Duan Xinyi's room. "All right," said Duan Xinyi in a soft tone while nodding. Then the two of them left the cave. "Lin Feng, I would like to ask you a question." While leaving the cave, Duan Xinyi had remained silent for a while and then finally responded. "What is it?" asked Lin Feng while looking at Duan Xinyi's strange facial expression. He had the impression that Duan Xinyi was avoiding his eyes. Duan Xinyi looked at Lin Feng, her lips shook, she looked nervous but she finally found the courage to ask, "Lin Feng, that beautiful woman who wears white clothes, do you like her?" Lin Feng was a bit dumbstruck, he wouldn't have thought Duan Xinyi would ask him such a question. "Yes, I do," nodded Lin Feng immediately. That ice goddess was always silently standing by his side, she was like his own shadow, without asking for anything in return, everything she did was for him. Even though she was ice-cold, Lin Feng could feel her love, especially during the times when he was hurt or in danger. Meng Qing became so furious that her body started to freeze. She only cared about Lin Feng's well-being, more than her own. Duan Xinyi had always known about her, but she couldn't help it, she looked extremely sad. They remained silent for some time and arrived near a stream and sat down on a stone. Duan Xinyi picked up some small rocks and threw them into the stream which made the water ripple. "Lin Feng, are you going to marry her?" asked Duan Xinyi, without restraining herself, while looking at the water ripples. "I will," replied Lin Feng resolutely and straightforward. He would, of course, marry Meng Qing. They really loved each other so they had to make an official pledge of love. "She's really lucky," replied Duan Xinyi in a weak voice. "I also want to be with the one I love and stay with him. I want to watch the sunrise and the sunset every day with him, I want to watch the water of the streams flow." Lin Feng was speechless. He obviously understood that the person she loved was him. All these portraits of him made her intentions clear. "But I must say it clearly, for the one I love, I can abandon everything, it's not a problem at all," said Duan Xinyi in a low voice almost as if she was whispering to herself. Immediately after, she turned her head and looked at Lin Feng while smiling in a warm and gentle way. Some people, if they missed an opportunity, had regrets their entire life. Since this was the current situation, why not seize any possibility in chance? "Lin Feng, if I abandon my status as a princess, abandon my home, and the status as the first wife, would you accept me?" Duan Xinyi's voice was soft, moving and touching. She had the majestic social status of a princess, she could get married with any extremely wealthy or powerful person and millions of people would fall to her beauty, but because of Lin Feng, she was willing to abandon everything, her social status, her home, and even the title of wife, because Lin Feng said that he would marry Meng Qing. In other words, Duan Xinyi was asking to become Lin Feng's concubine. Her love for him was so deep, how could he remain calm? While looking at that beautiful smile, Lin Feng's lips shook, he didn't know what to say, he didn't know what he wanted. "If you don't like me in that way, I can just stay by your side and become your servant, I would serve the both of you," continued Duan Xinyi with the same magnificent smile on her face, it was extremely touching and moving. Lin Feng's lips shook but immediately after, he stretched his hands, put them around Duan Xinyi's shoulders and pulled her into his arms, he then embraced her and pulled her head into his chest. With her beauty, elegance, gentle nature, with such a deep and pure love, Lin Feng couldn't remain unaffected. It was impossible for him not to be moved. Only a cold-blooded animal would remain unaffected by such a pure act of love. The problem was that in Lin Feng's heart, there was only Meng Qing. A while ago, he had actually already secretly decided that he would marry Meng Qing. If he accepted Duan Xinyi, what would he be able to give her? He wouldn't be able to give her anything, but Lin Feng hadn't thought that Duan Xinyi wouldn't ask for anything in return. She just wanted to be near him, even if she became a servant. When Duan Xinyi felt Lin Feng's warm body, she smiled. She looked like a resplendent and magnificent flower. However, even though she was smiling, crystal-clear tears started to flow down her cheeks. Love could be magnificent and wonderful, but it could also be subtle, silent and painful. Outside of the forest, many people were looking impatient. Outside of the forest, many people were looking impatient. He still hasn't come out, and Yan Yupingsheng left a while ago. How come he's not getting the hell out of there? Swore a young man in a low voice. That person was furious. Yan Yupingsheng had said that the princess desperately wanted to see him. It really seemed like that was the case. He was inside, alone with the princess. Is there even anyone who knows who he is? Asked someone. All the young people who were there belonged to the imperial palace. They were the children of the imperial ministers or children with noble blood. None of them was a common person. Besides, for many people, Duan Xinyi was the woman of their dreams. She had everything: beauty, charm and social status. They had been trying to meet the princess for such a long time, but each time they could only wait outside. They couldn't get inside. He definitely doesn't belong to the imperial palace, replied someone. The crowd nodded. If he belonged to the imperial palace, they would have known about him. Since he doesn't belong to the imperial palace, wait until he comes out and we will show him his place, said a cold and evil voice. They were all furious. They couldn't even get inside. Lin Feng was inside and alone with the princess. They were all wondering what was happening. They were enraged. At that moment, in the distance, two silhouettes appeared. When the crowd saw these people, they all calmed down. It was him. The young man leading the way looked cold, detached and serious, giving people the impression that he was already very mature. Behind him was another young man. He looked as sharp as a blade. Is the princess here? Asked the young man leading the way, sounding calm, indifferent and domineering. She's here, but officer, she shouldn't go and bother her, said someone, which surprised the young man. He then looked at his interlocutor and said, what do you mean? When that person sensed the young man's domineering expression, his heart started beating faster. He was surprisingly a bit scared. Shi Qiong was the youngest officer of the Imperial Guards. How inspiring. A guy went in. He's been in there for a while already. I'm just afraid that you will disturb the princess, replied the person again, stupefying Shi Qiong. His eyes looked ice cold. He started walking forwards in the direction of the forest, but as before, he wasn't allowed to enter. Let me in, said Shi Qiong in a low voice, yet sounding domineering and furious. When the crowd saw that, smiles appeared on their faces. Shi Qiong had an extraordinary social status and was extremely talented. He had become the youngest officer in a faction of the Imperial Guards. He was much more outstanding than them. Besides, Shi Qiong also pursued the princess. Unfortunately, Duan Xinyi wasn't interested in him, which upset him. But all of them were upset by the fact that Lin Feng was inside, alone with the princess, for such a long time. That time, Shi Qiong was leading the way so they would be able to go inside with him. The princess said it. She doesn't want to be disturbed, said the women blocking the way in a cold tone. If you don't let me in, then don't blame me for barging in, said Shi Qiong, sounding furious. Try and dare. There is nothing that I, Shi Qiong, can't do. Even the second prince, His Highness, said that I could come here as I wish, said Shi Qiong indifferently. Shi Qiong, you are really audacious. At that moment, a shout spread through the air. The crowd looked in the direction of the forest and looked embarrassed. It was Duan Xinyi, she looked lithe and graceful. Behind Duan Xinyi was the young man who had been with her all the time, Lin Feng. Lin Feng was looking at Shi Qiong. That young man was very strong, from head to toe, he was releasing an oppressive aura. Besides, he just said that Duan Wuya authorized him to come as he wished. Lin Feng was a bit surprised. Xin, shouted Shi Qiong, looking a bit more tender, but immediately after, he looked at Lin Feng in an extremely domineering and aggressive way, his eyes looked ice cold. He then asked, "Who are you?" Lin Feng didn't immediately reply. He slightly turned his head and looked at the young man behind Shi Qiong. Lin Feng was surprised, it was him. "His name is Lin Feng," said that young man who was also looking at Lin Feng. His facial expression was extremely sharp. Lin Feng. The crowd was a bit surprised. Even though some people had never seen Lin Feng, they had obviously heard his name. "So it's you," said Shi Qiong while looking Lin Feng up and down. He then said coldly, "But, you are just an insignificant person, the unimportant Qi Xie Marquis, what gives you the right to be standing at the princess' side?" Lin Feng was, as before, not looking at Shi Qiong. He was still looking at the young man behind him. That young man was the blade master, Leng Yu. Surprisingly, he was there, in the imperial city, behind Shi Qiong. On that day, the one who had saved Leng Yu in Celestial River was probably from the imperial city. But Leng Yu was a disciple of the Haoyu sect. What connection did he have with the imperial city? "Shi Qiong, shut up," said Duan Xinyi when she heard Shi Qiong humiliating Lin Feng. She then added, sounding ice cold, "I already said it, without my permission, nobody can come and disturb me, and you dare to force your way in. Xinyi, try and understand how I feel in my heart," replied Shi Qiong. Immediately after, he coldly glanced at Lin Feng and said, "Xinyi, he's an insignificant Qi Xie Marquis, even though he is not weak and has gained some fame, in the end, he is still just a nobody. How can you allow him to enter and pollute you? Mind your own business, I don't need your advice," shouted Duan Xinyi furiously, looking enraged. "Are you just going to hide behind a girl?" said Shi Qiong while coldly glancing at Lin Feng, who was remaining silent. Lin Feng frowned. Lin Feng knew that if Yan Yu Pingxing left, trouble would arise. This was the imperial palace and all these young men were aristocrats of the court. They all had incredible social statuses and were all in love with Duan Xinyi. Things were predestined to be difficult. "What do you want?" said Lin Feng while walking forward. His voice was extremely sharp. Shi Qiong and Lin Feng stared at each other. "My name is Shi Qiong, I am an officer of the Imperial Guards, Xinyi is a princess, here, everybody is an aristocrat of the court, children of imperial ministers, or even of noble blood. You are a simple Qi Xie Marquis, don't you feel ashamed? Besides, what gives you the right to be with the princess, what do you have that we don't?" said Shi Qiong sounding extremely domineering. Shi Qiong was an officer of the Imperial Guards and even though he was a bit scared of Duan Wuya and acted extremely polite to him, he had always thought that Duan Xinyi and him were the best possible match. What did Lin Feng think he was doing? "Is that so?" Lin Feng smiled coldly. "You all have very prestigious social statuses but in the end, none of you can compete with me. Continue," said Shi Qiong coldly. "If the princess says that she wants to be with you, I will immediately leave," said Lin Feng indifferently, which stupefied Shi Qiong. Immediately after, Duan Xinyi walked towards Lin Feng and held on to his arm. When everybody saw that, they grew even more furious. Lin Feng was right. In Duan Xinyi's heart, there was only Lin Feng. No matter what, they couldn't compete with him on that front. "Xinyi, don't believe his sweet words, he is just an insignificant person. He just wants to cling to the rich and powerful and will obviously never be able to give you anything. said Shi Qiong while looking at Duan Xinyi. He then added, I, Shi Qiong, will give you everything you want. Really? Duan Xinyi was looking Shi Qiong. Of course. Nodded Shi Qiong, sounding resolute. Well, I want you to disappear from my sight. Get lost. Said Duan Xinyi, sounding ice-cold, which made Shi Qiong astonished. Finally, he looked at Lin Feng. If he couldn't change Duan Xinyi's mind, he would just remove his competition, Lin Feng. Lin Feng, I will give you one chance. If you take the initiative to leave Duan Xinyi, I will not pursue you. Threatened Shi Qiong. Lin Feng gradually looked colder and colder. He then said, Xinyi told you to get lost. What are you still doing here? You are courting death. Said Shi Qiong. Really? I don't think so. Replied Lin Feng while frowning and holding his head high. These two people were glaring at each other. You don't think so? Lin Feng, let's see if you can take my punch. Said Shi Qiong, sounding evil, which made the other people secretly smile. It was clear to everyone how powerful Shi Qiong was. He was a genius at the third Xian Qi layer. If he landed a punch on Lin Feng, he would either die or live as a cripple. Shi Qiong, you went way too far. When Duan Xinyi heard Shi Qiong, she was furious. He surprisingly wanted to punch Lin Feng. Lin Feng had come to see her and Shi Qiong was causing trouble. Besides, he was getting more and more aggressive. Shi Qiong, you went way too far. When Duan Xinyi heard Shi Qiong, she was furious. He surprisingly wanted to punch Lin Feng. Lin Feng had come to see her and Shi Qiong was causing trouble. Besides, he was getting more and more aggressive. Xinyi, I'm doing everything for you. Lin Feng shouldn't be with you. He cannot give you anything, and on top of that, too many people hate him. Said Shi Qiong. Lin Feng had even killed Duan Tianlang's son, Duan Han. Shi Qiong obviously knew about those events. Lin Feng belonged to the unwashed masses. He initially had no social status, but then Duan Wuxia had conferred him the title of Marquis, which wasn't a very high title compared to them. Besides, he only gave him the title because he could use Lin Feng. Maybe someday he wouldn't need him anymore and Lin Feng would be worthless. He had no background and had many enemies. Lin Feng was unable to protect himself from them. How could he even protect Duan Xinyi? That's none of your business. Said Duan Xinyi in an ice-cold tone. She immediately turned to Lin Feng and said, Lin Feng, let's go. You need a girl to protect you, joked Shi Qiong calmly. Lin Feng didn't move, he was just looking at Shi Qiong. He looked calm and serene. He needed a girl to protect him. Lin Feng, ignore him. Said Duan Xinyi when she saw that Lin Feng wasn't moving. She looked anxious. She knew how strong Shi Qiong was. He was the youngest of the 9 Imperial Guard officers. In the entire Imperial City, he was one of the most talented cultivators. Lin Feng had great natural abilities, but he was still weaker than Shi Qiong. Apart from strength and natural abilities, Shi Qiong also had a background. Even if Lin Feng injured him while defending himself, the consequences would be dire. Shi Qiong's background was terrifying. Even Duan Wuxia had to respect to him. Therefore, because of this, Duan Xinyi wished that Lin Feng and Shi Qiong hadn't met, because no matter what, Lin Feng would lose. However, could Lin Feng ignore it? Shi Qiong humiliated him and said that he needed a girl to protect him. In fact, it was true. If Lin Feng couldn't protect himself, what would he be able to give Duan Xinyi apart from worries and pain? Lin Feng was calmly standing there and looking at Shi Qiong. He then said, Come and punch me, if you dare. Ha! Shi Qiong was stupefied. Lin Feng accepted. Immediately after, he smiled coldly. Lin Feng really had guts. He was begging for death. When the crowd heard Lin Feng, they all laughed. They all thought that Lin Feng was foolish. All the 9 officers of the Imperial Guards were extremely strong. The lowest level required to be an officer of the Imperial Guard was the 3rd Xian-Qi layer. Shi Qiong was the youngest Imperial Guard officer who had broken through to the 3rd Xian-Qi layer. Unfortunately, Lin Feng would not be able to resist. "Very good, you're a real man." Unfortunately, Shi Qiong laughed in an ice-cold way. Lin Feng had accepted. No matter if it was out of courage or foolishness, his punch was aimed to be deadly. Shi Qiong was going to be merciless with his attack. Duan Xinyi looked sad when she heard Lin Feng accept the battle. She didn't say anything. She knew how Lin Feng was. She wouldn't be able to change his mind. He was definitely going to fight. Duan Xinyi coldly glared at Shi Qiong. Shi Qiong also glanced at her and said, "Xinyi, don't worry, I will not kill him." Shi Qiong really didn't intend to kill Lin Feng, but after that punch, Lin Feng would definitely have trouble ever standing back up. He would be crippled. "Xinyi, don't worry," said Lin Feng indifferently while smiling at Duan Xinyi. Duan Xinyi slightly nodded and didn't say anything else. Even though Shi Qiong was extremely strong, Lin Feng was not weak either. Even if Shi Qiong wanted to kill Lin Feng with just a punch, Duan Xinyi didn't think it was possible. She had seen Lin Feng's strength in the lovesick forest. "Alright, get ready to be punched," said Shi Qiong when he saw that Duan Xinyi and Lin Feng were looking at each other. He couldn't stand it and released some ice-cold qi. An extremely powerful qi emerged from Shi Qiong's body. Pure qi started fluctuating and a flood dragon illusion appeared around his body. It was incredible. 3rd Xian-Qi layer. Lin Feng was a bit surprised when he sensed Shi Qiong's qi. Shi Qiong was about 20 years old and already had the strength of the 3rd Xian-Qi layer. He really had amazing natural abilities. Of course, Lin Feng also knew that the continent was vast. There were a myriad of geniuses. Lin Feng had high natural abilities, but he never said that he was the strongest and no one could beat him. He knew that there were many people who were much stronger than him. Besides, there were also many people who could practice cultivation with much better conditions than him. Those who were noble and wealthy, they had legendary potions, pills and other resources. They have had it all since birth. All Lin Feng could do was rely on his own determination and his power of comprehension to practice cultivation. With great pain and effort he would constantly improve himself, without ever giving up or stopping. The pure qi on Shi Qiong's body kept undulating and finally condensed around his fist, which made his fist look like a flood dragon. The illusion even emitted a roar while absorbing the powerful qi. Shi Qiong's power is terrifying, thought the crowd when they saw the pure qi flood dragon on Shi Qiong's fist. He looked majestic. If that fist touched Lin Feng, would the dragon swallow him whole? Shi Qiong was not going to show the least bit of mercy towards Lin Feng. "If you want to act like a man, you will have to pay the price," said Shi Qiong with his fist ready to bombard the atmosphere. He was coldly glaring at Lin Feng. Lin Feng would never be able to defend against his punch. He wanted to prove to Duan Xinyi that Lin Feng was not a good match for her. Only him, Shi Qiong, could protect her and be her match. Lin Feng remained silent. Scorching hot flames emerged from his body. It was a deadly fire which invaded the entire atmosphere, making many people back away from Lin Feng. Pure qi fire condensed on his fist and Lin Feng's fist transformed into a blazing sun. "You have broken through to the 1st Xian-Qi layer. Not bad. Unfortunately, you will not be able to withstand my power," said Shi Qiong with confidence burning in his eyes. A cultivator of the 1st Xian-Qi layer couldn't fight back against the strength of a cultivator of the 3rd Xian-Qi layer. His fist was going to be merciless. Its sole purpose was to crush Lin Feng. Lin Feng ignored Shi Qiong. In his heart, there was no self, nobody, no emotions, only darkness. Besides, in Lin Feng's world of darkness, there was his grim fire. The pure qi on his body kept undulating and rushing towards Lin Feng's fist. The pressure increased, the energy slowly transformed into a pitch-black fire. That deadly black fire was terrifying, it looked abyssal. It was absorbing insane amounts of pure chi from the flames, it was constantly absorbing the strength of the sun, however, its size didn't change at all. Huh? What kind of fire is that? The crowd was startled when they saw Lin Feng's black fire. Besides, the strange fire seemed to be controlled by Lin Feng. The crowd couldn't feel the deadly qi from the fire. It wasn't as intense as the scorching heat from normal flames, that black fire was extremely calm and tranquil. Shi Qiong frowned but immediately relaxed. Lin Feng had just broken through to the first Xian Qi layer, that's all. Even if he knew some special skills, it would be of no use against him. Fool, even if you studied a few skills, you can't do anything. I am much stronger than you, all that you do will be in vain, basically, you stand no chance of withstanding my punch. Said Shi Qiong indifferently. He wanted to see hatred in Lin Feng's eyes. Lin Feng was too calm, which made him feel upset. However, Shi Qiong saw nothing at all in the eyes of Lin Feng, he just looked as calm and serene as before. His pure qi continued moving towards his fist. Flames, darkness, deathly silence, the flame greatly resembled Lin Feng right now, emotionless. Shi Qiong saw that Lin Feng was ignoring him, which made him grow angrier and angrier. Finally, he started walking forwards and his flood dragon roared furiously, as if it was a real dragon. Roar! Shi Qiong's fist bombarded the atmosphere towards Lin Feng. A white flood dragon was rushing towards Lin Feng. At the same time, Lin Feng also moved. His calm and ordinary fist whistled towards Shi Qiong. Then, the black fire moved into the atmosphere and the black fire turned into a lotus flower. The atmosphere was then invaded by the terrifying power of the grim fire. This time, Shi Qiong's heart skipped a beat, he was surprised. How was that possible? How could that lotus flower have such a terrifying energy? Shi Qiong's heart was brutally pounding in his chest. Everybody was looking at Shi Qiong and Lin Feng's fists as they collided. In an instant, the flood dragon was annihilated, it was consumed by the black lotus, it was incredible and thrilling. The grim fire lotus was way too terrifying, it had destroyed Shi Qiong's flood dragon. Shi Qiong had lost. The grim fire lotus was way too terrifying, it had destroyed Shi Qiong's flood dragon. Shi Qiong had lost. Besides, it wasn't over yet, the grim fire lotus continued to move forwards, and that small ball of energy as big as Lin Feng's fist crashed into Shi Qiong's fist. Sirrrr. Crack. Crackling sound spread in the atmosphere. Shi Qiong's pure qi collided with the black lotus and immediately dispersed. Nothing could stop the black lotus. Ah! A horrible shriek of agony spread through the atmosphere. Shi Qiong's body was blown back several hundred meters. His face had turned deathly pale. Shi Qiong raised his fist, it was burnt black, his facial muscles were twitching from the extreme pain. He had been too careless. From the beginning, he had assumed that he would be able to cripple Lin Feng's cultivation with a single punch. He had never thought that Lin Feng was able to injure him. After he noticed the terrifying energy of the Black Lotus, he didn't have the time to dodge anymore, and then that Black Lotus crashed into his fist and burnt his flesh. When the crowd saw that, they remained silent, especially the noble young men. Surprisingly, Lin Feng had won. They had thought that when Shi Qiong attacked, he would definitely cripple Lin Feng's cultivation, but reality was completely different. Lin Feng had released a black lotus which burnt Shi Qiong's fist. You overestimate yourself, you're pathetic. Even if you say that I can't protect the princess, could you? Joked Lin Feng coldly, which made Shi Qiong feel awkward. His heart was pounding and he was shaking from the intense pain. How excruciatingly painful. That fire was terrifying. Considering his strength, he wouldn't be able to recover from the injury naturally, he would definitely need the assistance of pills. Xin Yi, you should head back. I will leave first, that's all right. I will deal with the nobodies that get in my way," said Lin Feng, turning his head. His voice was soft. Duan Xinyi remained silent for a second and then immediately nodded. "Well then, be careful." "All right," said Lin Feng while walking. He glanced at the crowd with a cold glare. He looked at the rich and noble cultivators. Surprisingly, they didn't dare make eye contact, they were all worthless. Lin Feng's strength was so terrifying that it scared them. Even though they all had noble backgrounds, what amazed them the most was still extreme cultivation strength. If someone was strong enough, they could reach the heavens and look down on humanity. A single powerful cultivator could have more power than all the great spheres of influence combined. Would he care about these influential nobles? If they provoked him, he would crush them. Lin Feng walked through the crowd and nobody stood in his way. If anyone dared to try, they might end up dying after being burnt by the Black Lotus. Not only did they not obstruct his path, but those noble young men, who had acted in an aggressive way a moment before, were also slightly backing away. That was the way things were when one was recognized as an extremely strong cultivator. Lin Feng didn't even spare these people a glance. He was just calmly and coldly looking ahead. In the direction he was looking, there was Shi Qiong and Ling Yu. Shi Qiong was fixedly staring at Lin Feng with hatred in his eyes. Not only did he not get to show Duan Xinyi his strength, he wasn't able to cripple Lin Feng's cultivation, instead he had also been injured by Lin Feng. His face was filled with shame. All of this had happened in front of Duan Xinyi. Shi Qiong was enraged and had killing intent in his eyes. He wanted to kill Lin Feng no matter what. When Lin Feng sensed Shi Qiong's wrath, pure qi started undulating in his hand, and a deadly black fire appeared. But Lin Feng was, as before, calmly walking forwards. He was releasing a terrifying deadly qi. He was moving nearer and nearer to Shi Qiong by the second. Shi Qiong was fixedly staring at Lin Feng approaching. At that moment, he had a dilemma: should he stand his ground and fight or should he move out of Lin Feng's path? If he fought against Lin Feng, would he be able to survive another Black Lotus? He had already been injured from briefly encountering the Lotus. He already had lost any ideas that he could defeat Lin Feng and no longer thought that he was stronger than Lin Feng. That lotus made from grim fire was way too terrifying. A moment before, the flesh from his entire fist had been burnt black. If that black lotus was aimed at his chest, he would be burnt alive in an instant. But if he didn't fight, could he really open a path? In front of everybody, he, the youngest Imperial Guard officer, would move out of the way because he was scared of facing Lin Feng. If he really did that, the news would quickly spread throughout the city, which would allow the people from the Imperial Palace to humiliate him and make fun of him. Lin Feng was getting nearer and nearer. He was only a few meters away from him. Shi Qiong still hadn't come up with a decision, but while he was still thinking, he heard a voice. "Shi Qiong, let Lin Feng pass," said Duan Xinyi. Even though Lin Feng had just won the fight, she still didn't want them to continue fighting. It wouldn't be beneficial for Lin Feng, no matter if he won or lost. When Shi Qiong heard Duan Xinyi, he was surprised. He then turned to Lin Feng and said, "Since Xinyi says, it's over for today, but I will remember this injury, and I will have my revenge." After saying that, Shi Qiong moved out of the way and let Lin Feng pass. He was happy to hear Duan Xinyi's words. He didn't want to fight against Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled coldly. He passed by the side of Shi Qiong, then slightly stopped. He then looked at Shi Qiong with a mocking smile as if he found him extremely amusing. He didn't say a word, and continued walking towards the exit. When Shi Qiong saw that mocking smile, his mouth twitched and he started shaking. That was the first time that he had ever been so humiliated. Shi Qiong had high natural abilities and people who were as outstanding as him were rare. However, because of his background, even cultivators stronger than himself would not humiliate him. He had never been so humiliated. The woman he loved wanted to be with Lin Feng. She worshipped Lin Feng. He wanted to cripple Lin Feng's cultivation, and in the end, he was injured instead. What made him the most furious was that Lin Feng could have left from anywhere, but he decided to walk towards him, and that was on purpose. Lin Feng was imposing and domineering. He had obviously done that on purpose. Shi Qiong was still filled with fear and had moved out of the way. He even had to endure Lin Feng's mocking smile, a cold mocking smile. He had the feeling that everybody was laughing at him and Duan Xinyi would despise him. Lin Feng passed next to Shi Qiong and continued walking forwards without even turning his head to look back. He looked confident, he had the attitude of a winner. Lin Feng! Suddenly shouted Shi Qiong in an ice-cold tone which made Lin Feng stop. He turned around and saw Shi Qiong running towards him. Shi Qiong's flood dragon roared. His entire body seemed to transform into a flood dragon as he threw himself towards Lin Feng. It opened its mouth and an extremely sharp set of teeth could be seen. Lin Feng abruptly turned around and raised his hand. His grim fire was already in his hand. Lin Feng, when facing a cultivator of the third Xian Qi layer, remained extremely cautious and vigilant. He was fearless but not arrogant. The black flames moved towards the illusionary flood dragon. Those black flames could burn the world to ashes, so they destroyed the flood dragon. At the same time, Lin Feng sensed an oppressive energy envelop his body. Roar! Shi Qiong kept moving forwards. From his back a gigantic terrifying dragon appeared. It had extremely sharp claws and razor-like teeth. That dragon spirit almost looked like a real dragon as it threw itself at Lin Feng. Shi Qiong had decided to fight against Lin Feng and immediately released his spirit. Burn! Lin Feng didn't flinch and instead moved towards the dragon. When his grim fire collided with the dragon spirit, the flood dragon was surprisingly engulfed in flames. The two fighters were looking at each other, the power of the dragon and the grim fire were clashing, but at that moment, an incredibly sharp blade energy filled the atmosphere. It was extremely dazzling. Without leaving even a second to react, it moved straight towards Lin Feng. That blade was extremely quick, and was filled with a terrifying blade force. The blade seemed to radiate a multitude of different lights. That energy blade could adopt many different forms, thousands and thousands of different energies combined to create that energy blade. Leng Yu had been condensing energy in his blade for a long time and was finally attacking. His blade was earth-shattering. Recently, the Blade Master entered just like Lin Feng, had broken through to the first Xian Qi layer. In the past, he had been defeated by Lin Feng. Now, he had broken through to the Xian Qi layer. The Blade Master Leng Yu was continuing to grow stronger. Dodge! When Lin Feng saw that blade moving towards him suddenly, the first thought he had was to dodge. The timing of that blade was perfect. It was an attack aiming for vitals. Leng Yu obviously wanted to kill Lin Feng with that attack. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.